Recording. Good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week, we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing. 5 cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you get your 1 star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ, all the 1s and 2s. By the name of some fun, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over too. And prepare to hear the legend of the straight chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? Welcome to another extra Halloween episode of Straight Chilling. My name is Bob, and I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 238, recorded on Monday, October 28th, 2019. And allow me to welcome you to our 4th annual Halloween extravaganza episode. First up, we got our boy Randy Jandy calling in costume tonight, sir. Welcome.
What costume? You gotta look at the YouTube to see what it is.
I want you to tell everybody what you are because it is fucking
I'll
phenomenal.
let you do it, Bobby. You're a better introducer than I am.
All right. Randy Gandy is in costume as Cousin Eddie, the one and only Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation, complete with the shitter removal hose, because the shitter is definitely full.
The shitter is full, and happy Halloween.
Happy
Randy Gandy G.
Halloween.
Quaid. I can't believe you missed the very obvious setup that you had there. This is
G. Quaid.
The jokes exist for a reason, Rob. Why are you not going to use them?
There's too many to fucking remember at this point.
It's true.
Next
That's
up,
fucking true.
calling in from South Korea, we got our boy Soju. What's up, Juice?
What up? It's your boy, Extravaganza Stains. Welcome, boys and girls,
That's
to
very
the
foppish.
wonderful world of horror. Here we are.
You have a luchador mask on? What is that? What are you rocking?
Dude, this was a last-minute announcement by you guys, so I literally had to go. We paint Halloween masks for my class or whatever, so I was like, oh, where's a Halloween mask?
You look like the Red Beetle Vigilante from the new Watchmen series, and you will inevitably die in the first 10 minutes.
Dude, there we go.
There we go. I'm Bob.
Giving you a backstory.
Kind of dressed up like Joe Bob this evening.
Joe Bob, yeah. My boy Dick Bibbs.
Dick Bibbs over here. I'm cribbing the man's style. I got one of those bolo ties. It's dope.
Bolo.
These things are easy. They're so easy to put on. I get why people want to wear them. Fuck regular ties.
Rob, you're going to become a bolo tie guy. I need you to tell us right now.
Damn.
No, I don't think I have that sort of swag. I don't have that Joe Bob swag.
It's tough to justify a bolo if you're not.
It is.
If it's not obvious
It takes
that you
a
should be
certain
wearing
kind
a
of
bolo,
man, yeah.
you probably shouldn't be wearing a bolo.
Yeah, I feel like if you're like legitimately from Texas, you could do it, no question. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. But I'm just like I am fucking Florida man.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get
You
it.
need cutoffs, is what you need.
I got those. Minshew mania. Anyway, happy Halloween again, everybody. Tonight we're doing a double feature like we always do. We're talking about the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and we're also covering Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and tackle some housekeeping this evening. Quick reminder, the November poll pick is posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this November. The theme of the movies are movies that Justin would hate, and the 3 movies up there that you can vote on are Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's 31, and Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects. It is tied again.
Jesus Christ!
This is the 4th time.
Damn.
It's like tied, broken, tied, broken.
Is there anybody
broken.
still on that Halloween 2 train?
There's a few, yeah.
They
need
might have to
jump ship.
switch, yeah.
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 This is what democracy looks like in America, guys. You're gonna have to go with the lesser evil.
Yeah, it's
Third party
it's
candidate's a waste of your vote.
Or the more evil.
it's a toss up between The Devil's Rejects and 31. And I was mentioning to Justin a little bit earlier that this is by far the most people I think have ever had votes. So it's like
People are coming.
It's interesting.
They're chiming in,
Yeah.
and man, they really want to hear us shit on these movies, or they really want to shit on us for shitting on these movies.
Yeah,
That's
probably
just
a
one of
little
the
bit
two.
of both.
I don't know, man. I think it's just
It's
one.
a shit party. Maybe so. Also, as we've been doing every week for the month of October, we've been raffling off movie bundles. We got the last one to announce this evening. All you had to do to join in on this raffle is just support us on Patreon at any level. So big congratulations to Mr. Alex K for nabbing the last movie bundle.
Whoa.
Give it up
movie
for
bundle,
Whose brother is
Bob.
he?
K definitely does not stand for nom. So
Okay,
also, I don't
good.
have any brothers.
Good. Well, congratulations, Alex. I'm glad that nepotism didn't win every week.
Right. Just 25%. So keep your eye out, Alex. I'm going to drop those movies in the mail to you tomorrow. So hopefully they'll get to you before Halloween. But I don't know. It's getting down to the wire. We'll see.
Bob.
I know. Justin, do we have any YouTube or Twitch news?
Yeah, so I just wanted to announce that for the past couple of weeks and hopefully moving forward on the YouTube page, the behind the scenes episodes that we post up are now like complete episodes. Before we were not able to hear the voicemails or any of the like soundbite segments or anything like that. So now we have worked that out. So you can listen to the entire podcast in its entirety with some bonus extras, you know, for the behind the scenes up on YouTube. So those are available now. And we are still playing video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/Straight Chilling Podcast. Watch me play through the Blair Witch Project. We have one more week in October. You can watch me play live, comment, or if you want, you can watch later. I upload those streams to YouTube, so you can watch them there as well. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Nice. Barreling through that Bear Winch project.
The old bear winch.
One scare at a
But
time.
who's the bear winch? That's the central question.
And what's she gonna make you do in the corner?
Who done it, and with what sexual device?
You're going in time out, Juice, says the Bear Winch.
Oh no. This turned into a different kind of podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 dudes in their 30s wrote a porn, apparently.
Wait, one in their
That's what-
20s.
that's what this
Bob.
is.
One's 20.
This is a lie. This is a lie.
I'm sorry, what?
I want to give a big thanks and a big shout out to everybody that joined us for our Joe Bob live watch
Joe Bob!
party. Joe Bob. This past Friday, it was a lot of fun. It was a solid turnout. Joe Bob showed Halloween 1, 4, and 5. Your boy passed out after the second movie. Actually, halfway through the second movie.
I'm pretty sure you passed out a few times, rallied
Oh, yeah.
for like moments,
Old
just
man
long enough
Bob
to type in
over
"I'm
there.
alive" and
That's
then pass
true.
back out.
That's true. Dude, that's a late night for me. I had almost been up for 24 hours at that point. It's a long day. But it was a solid turnout. Let us know how you guys like Zoom, because previously we were using a program called Rabbit to do the watch parties, which no longer exists. So we're trying Zoom out for the first time. Let us know if you like it, didn't like it, pros and cons. I think it seemed to be way less glitchy than Rabbit had been in the past. So on my end, it seemed to be pretty successful, but I want to hear from you guys as well. And one last bit of housekeeping, just another reminder, I'm going to be hanging out at Spooky Empire Saturday, November 2nd in Tampa, Florida, with some other spooky characters. If you're going to be in town, holler at me and, meet up, shake hands, talk about some horror shit. Holla, holla. There's totally not going to be an orgy in my hotel room.
Rob's totally not bringing the fog hog, so do not look for the room that's just blasting.
The one that looks like it's on fire. That's
The one that's going to get the police called. That's the one you want to go to.
Yeah, go right. Beeline for that room, baby. 237.
To sign up for the Straight Chilling Orgy, sign up.
You must provide a detailed sexual history.
That's the $69 tier on our Patreon website. You
Yes,
sign
it
up
is.
there. Yes. Oh, hallelujah.
I hope you guys like long episodes because this one's going to be a motherfucking doozy. At this
Yeah.
rate, with 2 movies, we're fucked.
It's true. We're fucked. Let's go ahead and jump into what we've been watching this week. Yo, Randy,
Hey gang, what you been watching?
What's up?
what you been watching?
Well, I didn't get to watch a whole lot this week. Just a pretty busy week. I did, like you said, I managed to swing Halloween 1, 4, and 5 with the Joe Bob and the Joe Bob crew. I managed to watch the first episode of the new Watchmen series, which I was never really super sold on, just as it being made. But it seems all right. I mean, I got like one episode's tough to tell. It seems like they're pulling like selectively from the source material, at least for now. I mean, I'm sure that some stuff will be cleared up, but I don't know. I could kind of go either way with it on all fronts right now, but we'll see how it goes. And then last but not least, I was reacquainted with the concept of McCamey Manor. You guys are familiar with this, or Bob, you are.
Oh.
Justin, do you know McCamey Manor?
Oh yeah.
Juice, do you
Is
know
that
what
the, no? Is that the guy who makes the fucked up houses or whatever? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Then I am.
So I don't know if
I
he
was
was in the
shaking my
news or-
head no, but then I realized yes, I'm familiar with this.
Yeah, so he was in that Haunters documentary, and I thought it was pretty fucked up. And then, like, somehow he ended up on my Twitter feed at one point, like, stories about him. So I don't know if he was trending or some shit. But it came up across my vision again, and I'm just, like, blown away. Somebody shared some of the legal language from their waivers that they have you sign. And so I watched Dark Tourist, the McCamey Manor episode, which I hadn't seen before.
Yes.
I don't particularly love that show. That guy is...
Nah.
I like it.
No.
I like
that
that show.
I'm with
That guy's
Randy.
not a very rigorous fucking documentarian, I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
the host
he's
killed it
alright.
for me. Ugh.
I love the
like
Tickle
him.
documentary, but he
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know about this stuff. But anyway, like some of the language in this thing is fucking bizarre. They have participant fully understands and agree they may be fish hooked and which may inadvertently cause rippage to the mouth area. I'm just gonna read a few select.
I'm out. I'm already out.
Right.
How is that legal? Just because you
'Cause they
signed
signed it.
something, I know, but
That's
you can't.
the question, man.
Yeah, it's like,
Can you legalize torture? Are people
No,
or is it the libertarian argument, or is it the oh my god, what are you doing to people argument? I'm pretty sure this guy jerks off to every video he makes, but
Oh yeah,
I think he does.
but he absolutely denies that they're fetish videos. But that guy has a fetish for denying he has fetish videos.
Hey, you know what? At least he's channeling it into a healthy outlet.
Oh yeah, people's
That is not
mouths.
true. He is still torturing people. He's still torturing people.
Yeah, what's gonna happen when they outlaw that? He's gonna have to do it under cover of fucking darkness. I mean, Jesus Christ, how deep does this need run? Also, here's another one that I just have to mention. Participant fully understands and agrees that if they are selected to visit the dentist, that they may have a tooth extracted without Novocaine and will not hold McCamey Manor liable.
That's insane, man.
They also, this document uses the word libel as in like slander and libel instead of liable, which is the correct term to be used.
See, like,
not-
how is that?
maybe
even gonna
I'm the
hold
dumb
up
one,
in
but I
any
really
kind
don't
of
think so.
court?
I don't know. I just don't know, man. This shit is like beyond my understanding by far, and I just like
Nah.
I wouldn't do this for my own sake, but I wouldn't do it just as a fuck you to that guy. You'll never get me in that shit. Anyway,
No,
so that's
that
what I've
dude's
been watching,
fucked.
which was very little.
That dude is fucked. Juice, what you been watching?
Well, let's see. I went out for Halloween for the first time in Korea. I usually go to this pretty cool beer festival where people dress up and stuff like that too, Halloween theme. But this year I specifically went out for Halloween. And I think it's kind of like Cinco de Mayo, maybe, I understand, where it's just like, hey, let's just go drink tequila, like on our end.
Cool.
Because
Yeah.
here it's literally like, hey, let's just like dress up very provocatively and go out and party and drink. And it was insanity. Like, I can't even describe. They didn't like technically shut down the streets and like the area I was in, but there was just so many people that the traffic was just backed up endlessly. Like you couldn't get
That
through.
does sound like fucking.
And
That's
it was
awesome.
St.
people
Patrick's
just dressed to the T. I sent out some pictures or whatever. And the makeup was incredible. They had people would just set up in the streets and bring like all their makeup kits out and charge people like $10, and they're like, oh, we'll do up all your makeup. I mean, there were people with like things ripped out of their face, like coming out of their faces, like aliens. I mean, it was awesome. And of course, like Koreans love a good trend. So like there were a million Jokers, a million Teletubbies. I don't know why Teletubbies are so popular in Korea right now. There were so many of them, like group costumes. Like I saw so many Teletubbies. So anyways, it was an awesome night in Korea for Halloween. Made me happy to kind of get into the season out here. And then I've been playing through one of my favorite Halloween kind of like pastimes is actually now that a lot of games are online, so many of them drop like Halloween, like little DLCs or specials like for the season. So a lot of my favorite games, I'm going back and playing just the Halloween like DLCs and stuff. So I went through all the Borderlands DLCs, and then Overwatch does a yearly thing too where it updates and it gives you new skins and stuff. So really been enjoying playing through those seasonal things. And then also this will be covered more next week, but got to see The Lighthouse. Oh my god. And we're doing a cast on it, so I don't want to talk too much.
No spoilers, man.
Don't spill your beans.
I will just say that I am happy that this movie exists in the world. So yeah, so we'll get more into it next week.
Tells a very important story about the importance of lighthouses.
I just it was a really fun watch. Well, fun. I
enjoyable.
It was a watch.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I've been watching mainly.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't had time to watch a whole lot outside of the Texas Chainsaw double feature, the Joe Bob triple feature, and also The Lighthouse, getting ready for our next week's show.
So wait, Joe Bob, he covered Halloween 1, 4, and 5, right?
Yeah, I think those are the ones he could get licenses to. And Tom Atkins called and threatened him because he didn't show Halloween 3.
That's awesome. I haven't seen that yet because I haven't.
Oh, really? Come on, Bob. That's with the goddamn times. Yeah, Tom called in and he's like, I'm going to kick your ass to Joe Bob.
Oh, that's
Joe Bob uncharacteristically did not have a lot to say about it.
That's fucking great, man. I love that. Yeah, that's kind of about it, I guess. But I wanna mention some music recommendations because I did come across some new music. There's a really dope Oingo Boingo song in Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
Oh yeah.
It's like it's the scene where the 80s douchebags like driving in their BMW just shooting their gun around willy-nilly. I don't know. I never really heard the song before, but it's called You Don't Live Forever, and that like sent me down this path. I was like, man, that sounds great. So I started listening to a lot of Oingo Boingo, and that led me down the like Joy Division path, and I was like, oh man, this is great too.
Oh,
yeah, no, I'm that guy.
Are you in the cars now? Are you big into the cars?
Not yet. We'll see though. So I don't know. Check out some Oingo Boingo. They have like some pretty decent like spooky season music. Also, I was listening to this interview with Chelsea Wolfe, who's a singer-songwriter that I was vaguely familiar with, but I was listening to that this morning on the ride to work, and after that I was like, I want to listen to some more of her stuff. I never really listened to her much before, and the first few songs that came up on Spotify were like, you know, kind of regular folk tunes, and then all of a sudden there's just like this like doom metal that just came out of nowhere, but it's still her singing, and I was like, what a turn that was. Like,
yeah.
Well, what is happening here? But I guess she sort of created this odd blend between folk and metal that I guess some people refer to as doom metal, folk doom, I think. Doom
folk, black doom metal.
One of those
steel blue.
Old man Bob over here.
Yeah, I know. No.
The kids call it doom folk.
When you reach like the 17th tier of genre labeling, it's just give it up, man. There's no point. If you are the one representative of your specific genre, you're just being a little pretentious.
That's definitely no. That's definitely not. She did not coin that term. Some dude who
whoever
probably works for Pitchfork is like, oh yeah, this is doom folk.
Yeah.
Let's blame it on Pitchfork. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. But check that shit out. Check out some Chelsea Wolfe. It's fucking baller. I always have a hard time like picking out metal bands that I really enjoy because usually the lead singer sounds like silly to me, like with the kind of vocals.
Yeah.
Old man Bob over.
It's hard to take serious, but she's got these like great thick layered like distorted guitars, and it's like
It
very
sure sounds
slow.
like
And it's like, well, the music is very like sludgy, but her vocals are like she can sing like a motherfucker. So they're just like sitting on top of all this like nastiness. It sounds fucking cool as shit to me. Chelsea Wolfe, check some of that out. Also good for spooky season.
That's actually real quick. That's like an outlet that we offer that we never talk about. We have like if you're especially going into Halloween, we should probably advertise at least once. We have like a Halloween playlist. If you're on Spotify, check us out.
Yeah.
Search. I wonder if you could search Straight Chillin'. Is it labeled Straight Chillin' Halloween playlist?
Monster
or?
Mash 30 times.
I think it's actually called Straight Chilling Presents a Halloween playlist. I think it's like 7 hours of music.
Speaking of pretension.
Yeah, well, I just remembered, like, oh shit, like we never talk about our Spotify playlist.
Yeah, so that's on there. Put that in your ears. There's a lot of good shit on there.
Yeah, check it out.
When Rob tells you to put something in your ears, you do it. Learn that the hard way.
No matter what it is, just do it. Cram it in there. So yeah, that's what I've been watching and or listening to. Let's go ahead and get into the main event. Finally, we're talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 1 and Part 2. Let's kick it off with the back of the box for Part 1.
What's on the back of the box?
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, released on October 4th, 1974. Directed by Tobe Hooper, starring Marilyn Burns, Edwin Neal, Alan Danziger, Gunnar Hansen, some other people. The plot synopsis is as follows. 2 siblings and 3 of their friends en route to visit their grandfather's grave in Texas end up falling victim to a family of cannibalistic psychopaths and must survive the terrors of Leatherface and his family. Gentlemen, we've all seen this before. I know we have. It's a silly question to ask. Would you recommend people check out the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Randy?
Boy, yeah, it's kind of unnecessary to answer that question. Yes, you should see this movie. If you're into horror at all, it's almost prerequisite, but it's also a damn good time. So you should be watching this movie. This movie is one of the few movies I can definitely say led to me sleeping on my parents' floor. So, give it a fucking watch. My God. How have you not?
Do it. If you don't, he's going to suck the shit right out of your butt with his hose.
The shitter is full, and I'm sick of your shit.
Shitter's full. Juice, would you recommend people check this out?
Yeah, if you're a fan of horror, then absolutely. If you're not, then don't. And I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. Go away.
Yeah.
Go away.
It's grisly.
But yeah, if you're a fan of horror and you have not seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, stop listening to our dumbasses and go watch it now immediately. This, as far as like true horror, like things that are horrifying, this movie holds up. It's from the 70s. It's gritty and brutal as fuck. And yes, you should watch it.
And a little silly.
A little bit, yeah.
Got a pinch of silliness in there.
But not in a fun way.
No, the silliness never leads anywhere fun.
No.
It ain't Pee-wee's Big
in
Adventure.
a kind of like
that.
disturbing way or like a uncanny way.
That's uncanny. Yeah, I recommend you check this out. Of course, it's a classic, and it's a classic for a reason. It came out in 1974, and we're still talking about it for a reason. Yeah, that's it. That's enough. I'm dropping the spoiler warning. We're going to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
We're finally talking about this. This got beaten out by Motel Hell last November.
Which is funny because that's supposed to be kind of a direct parody of this movie.
Yeah. Ugh,
And the
I
better
can't believe
movie,
it.
really, just hands down.
Oh yeah, everybody knows
It's
Motel Hell is
proven.
better than Texas Chainsaw
Can't
Massacre.
believe it. Can't believe it.
The
It's
mystery of
nuanced.
Farmer Vincent's fritters trumps the fucking meat hook by far.
But no,
I
yeah, 5
concur.
years into a horror podcast, we're finally talking about Texas Chainsaw. Woo.
You know, we go off the beaten path. Sometimes we review movies that are very questionable in the horror space.
But also
not
to
this
that
one.
point, I think it's important to say that like this movie has been talked about since it came out because it's a fucking masterpiece. You know,
Yeah.
people are going to talk about this kind of thing.
It's
So
true.
like, what are we going to add to it? It seems like
Exactly.
we're going to do our best, but also like to start with this thinking like we
Our
know more
best
than fucking
isn't-
Joe Bob Briggs does. You know, we don't.
Yeah, our best is
We
kind
don't.
of bullshit, especially with a movie this discussed and this think pieced to death.
Yes.
So, I mean, what can we really add? I mean, I assume that if you're listening to this, you're not listening to us for our fucking expertise. That's laughable. But this movie
So
in
here come
particular,
the dick jokes.
yeah, that's where we're going with this. Shitter's full. All right, I'm here to empty the shitter into this podcast. Bad
Well,
takes.
yeah.
Here we go.
So
Great.
Texas Chainsaw. It
So
starts
here's
with some brutal image, like just right out the gate. They do
That
the whole
intro.
spooky like voiceover, like
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
this is
They do,
based on
like,
true
the
The
events.
Star Wars
crawl.
crawl
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
with John Larroquette doing the voiceover.
Yeah, he does a good job.
I'm gonna just spill some trivia throughout because there's
Do
so
it.
much goddamn trivia for 2
Yeah,
movies.
that's good.
John Larroquette was paid only one item for being in this movie, and that was a joint. So, good job, John.
Damn.
Hopefully it wasn't skunk weed.
I don't know how Texans do their weed. I assume that they got some good shit, but who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. So the way this movie starts in and of itself is like pretty iconic. It's got the scroll, like just talking about like how these poor teenagers like experience these horrific events, and the people like were never captured, and it's, you know, to this day known as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then it, you know, says August 18th, 1973. Bam, here we are. And it's like taking pictures of these corpses that are like, you know, essentially after the fact.
Yeah.
These reporters and like police officers are going in and exploring the scene, and they're taking photographs of the corpses. And that sound.
That sound
Dude,
sticks
oh
with you.
my God.
Like when I heard that as a kid, that's what kept me up at night. Honestly, that first fucking scene.
The
of just
sound
flashes
design
in the dark.
in this
Yeah.
movie, he's
And then-
like got a lot of great moments for that, like throughout. And it just
Dude.
really gets under your skin. It kind of reminded me of a couple times. It reminded me of like Tetsuo. Like kind of they would use
Oh, yeah,
this kind of
yeah.
like grinding metal like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
sounds or whatever. But
Well,
yeah, it's
they picked sounds up from like slaughterhouses, or I don't know if they picked it up specifically from it, but that was the idea. Is like there's not a whole lot of soundtrack, and if it is, it's on the radio or whatever.
yeah.
But everything else is just them like using ethereal sounds that are reminiscent, at least, of a slaughterhouse. So thematically appropriate and fucking terrifying. Like just like if I just walked into a slaughterhouse, like I'm already kind of freaked out because that's a den of death. That's what it is. So I mean,
Yeah.
on that basis alone, they've got like such a sweet score with the concept. Also, I wanted to point out that like this movie kind of tapped into the same thing that I think the Blair Witch tapped into. I don't think this is an original idea. I'm sure I read this somewhere, but like the true story based on true events or whatever. This is at a time where people weren't so dubious of that, rightly so, or they weren't
Mhm.
rightly dubious of it. They were willing to accept it. So I think there was a lot more people that were like, but this movie both looks and feels in a lot of ways like a cinematic documentary that
Yeah.
tells you it's real from the outset. So sort of in a way that like Blair Witch is kind of like the last vestige of being able to do something like that, I think. But I think it comes from some of the fear comes from that same place that people had at the time. The reason people like banned this movie outright, despite it having very little like, you know, actual like knife in wound sort of gore moments, and just having it being very suggestive of that, is because of that sort of thing, because they were running on the operating procedure of this is real, I'm watching a documentary, people are being cut up.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like straight, like being in like that time where you're like naive to those things, and this opening where the dude like kills it with the the intro, and he's like true stories, and then you immediately flash to like pictures of corpses, and then you go into like kind of set up the story, like the whole reason the teens have to go to Texas. The first place is like, oh, these grave robbers. And if you're like going in this movie and they just told you it's true and you're just like completely naive, and then like you see all the corpses, and then you start off, and because it's like this like melty kind of corpse, or like
That
this
face
moist like
still
It's
corpse.
amazing.
Yeah,
it's
and
amazing.
It's like all set up like in this graveyard in this really just truly like disturbing way. It's something that like really sticks in your mind. Like, and then you like watch this movie about like these people that are eating these kids. You would lose your shit if you were going into that like being of the mindset of like, oh my God, this actually happened. You would be terrified, and rightly so, because the imagery that they use in this movie is like even today, like by today's day, it's like truly like disturbing. It's really,
and
really
like it's
fucked
so
up.
effective.
Yeah.
Like, and part of that is its age. Like today we're looking at it through the grainy footage that we got originally, restored in some cases, but not really restorable, or hasn't really been restored to the point where it's glossy. There's no gloss in this movie.
No, you don't want it. You don't
want it. Exactly. It's
No.
more effective without it. It
I
feels like found footage that in that way.
I watched it on Blu-ray disc for the first time this viewing. It's probably like the fourth or fifth time I've ever seen this movie. And this is definitely the most I've ever enjoyed it. Like, I've never been completely on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre bandwagon. As far as like original like horror IPs go, it was sort of at the bottom of my list. I mean, watching it this time around, and I experienced the same thing with The Shining.
I remember you saying that, yeah.
A few times, and then I watched it on Blu-ray on like a fairly sizable screen, not massive, but like a decent sized screen for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is a fucking masterpiece. I felt like
fucking snob.
I don't know, man. Like, there's something to be said. Like, yeah, the grain is there, but the grain, like, you really see every individual like little dot when you have it on Blu-ray. It makes a big deal. It's like, for me, it makes
a big deal.
Bob's, selling his pitch over here.
I think you're the one making the big deal, my friend. No,
it makes somebody.
This is why I do what I do.
Taking the shitter out.
I have to justify why I cannot afford a jet ski gentleman.
No, but this, like, it really is. It's just such a fucking effective movie. But let's talk about the plot a little bit, because there was something that occurred to me this time around. I've seen this probably 5 to 10 times. And there's one thing that never really occurred to me, and just because I was immediately immersed so much, but I was thinking to myself this time, hold the fuck up.
Yeah.
These two siblings are going to visit their grandfather's grave with several of their friends.
Sounds fun.
If you end the statement right, yeah, exactly. What the that never really crossed my mind as an odd thing, but that's so fucking weird. Like, as a fun trip.
And
like,
then we're going to go to the house, though. That was like a 2-part, I think.
Was it?
Well, I think their whole thing was...
it's a trip, and we're going to stop there, or is that...
So it was, it was like a thing where they kind of explain it. So at the movie, they do this whole like newscast over like, oh, people have been robbing graves. So their whole thing is they really have to go to this gravesite to make sure that like their grandfather hasn't been disturbed.
Did they say that though? Because I never inferred that. I just thought that was an intro to the hidden menace of Leatherface and the family.
I think so, because when they first show up to the graveyard, like they're talking to a person, and they're like, hey, and they're like, oh, you can't go in there, and they're like, oh, my grandfather's buried in there, like we need to check with the police and see like how, because they like specifically go like talk.
Okay, so they weren't like shocked to find that there. I guess that's true.
No,
see, in my like I never really like questioned like the motive of what they were doing. I was just like, okay, road trip with friends. They're stopping at this gravesite. You know, I just never really occurred to me. But
their primary destination was the home that the grandpa did own at one point, like which they do go to, and it's like pretty decrepit. And I don't know why that would be very fun. I guess there's a lake nearby they try to find. But I do want, before we pass the graveyard
banging's cheap
entirely. Yeah, I got to give a shout out to that old ass drunk man that's just like laying in the ground.
Yeah, man.
What is he doing?
That's a good fucking, like, as far as Harbingers go, that's a really fucking unique one. Because he's like instead of being an old Cooter,
he sees everything. I see everything.
Like, that's a very easy fucking harbinger to ignore. Whereas you get like the Camp Blood guy or whatever, who's just like, what the fuck? Like he's just like a kook who lives at like he's like clearly an insane person. I would, but like you might like listen to him. He's like there's a chance like he would leave an impact. Whereas this guy is lying on the ground being drunk, and you do not take in what a drunk person on the ground is saying to you. You just don't.
I want to know
instinctively. You ignore it.
Always there? Is he always drinking in the graveyard? Or was that just like a
graveyard drunk?
Well, no,
he's Dompe, the graveyard drunk.
That's where he lives.
I think this adds to like I've brought this up before, and we were talking about it not too long ago. We were talking about like being in the backwoods and kind of like with Deliverance, like the law being loose and stuff like that. This actually kind of lends to that a little bit, because when you live in kind of a small backwoods town like this, the reason those people that are there, I think it adds like some legitimacy to like the setting, is because they are there only because there's a spectacle to be had, or they know like people are going to be gathering around there. So you take this
looky-loos?
Kind of, yeah, because you're in a small town. There's nothing else to do. So literally anything that garners any type of attention, despite the fact that this horrific, like, people are like digging up bodies and displaying their like moist corpses up in the sun or whatever, and that's still attracting these dudes who are just there to drink. That that feels legitimate to me, having been in some of these settings. It's like that's that small backwoods town mentality.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
nothing else going on.
I didn't really think about that, but with that guy, like, it's his story to tell is so negligible, and I find that to be the most engaging thing about it. It's like you can ignore this guy. Like anybody there would just be like, ignore that guy. Yeah. Period. I don't know. I like him though. Like, he's also super dramatic. Like he's like the way he's shot, like from this really low angle, upside down. I love that. You don't get a lot of like dudes lying in the grass from that angle talking wild ass gibberish. I can't think of another movie that does that, and it's really fucking cool.
In general, probably my favorite part about this movie is the cinematography, like the camera movements and the lighting. Like it looks and feels so terribly hot. Like the way he catches like the sun hitting the camera lens and creating the lens flare, and like everything is just sort of like yellow and orange-ish, and like even the fucking corpse in the beginning is like sweating or melting or whatever. It just looks fucking miserable.
It looks nasty. You can almost like smell it sometimes. And the things that he'll focus on, like there's a dead armadillo, and like you said, the corpse is like melting. Everybody's shirts like super sweaty, and it's
a lot of dead things.
And then when you finally get to the house like later on where like these people live, it's just like everything looks so disgusting, and it almost like you can almost smell it, and like almost makes you want to like fucking gag or immediately. It's just like it matches the tone so perfectly. Like not only are these terrible things like visually happening, but you can almost like feel it. Well,
the heat is like they didn't have to work too hard to achieve the look of heat, because all the records show that particular summer where they were filming was oppressively hot, and the actors certainly suffered for it. The whole crew did, I'm sure, but the actors like are listed in that's in many of the pieces of trivia about how miserable these actors were, and who could blame them? Like we're from Florida. We know what it's like to be in oppressive heat for sure.
Sucks.
And man, if you had to do that for 18-hour days, fuck off everyone. I'm not talking to any of you motherfuckers.
Fuck off, Franklin.
Dude, that guy would be for real dead by the end of the shoot. He would not have it.
We gotta talk about Franklin, or we gotta talk about the squad. We got 5 kids.
The squad.
Squad up.
Franklin and Sally matter to me. Like,
it is true. So it's Sally and her brother Franklin, and they are the ones going to see their grandfather. And then it's Sally's boyfriend, and then just their 2 friends, like another couple. Like a guy and a girl.
Boy, do they like banging. They bang it out, and they bang it out some more. They just keep the banging. Oh, they try to. They talk about it enough. Yeah. That's the implication, anyway.
That's just their thing.
Kirk and Pam, they're trying to bang it out. I don't think it happens. And then there's Jerry. Hey, Jerry.
Hey, poor fucking Jerry.
Oh my God, Jerry. Oh my God. Dude.
Charity, dude. The
Franklin.
Texan accent that Franklin has is like it's definitely like a very Texan accent. It's true.
It's so
But
shrill.
he adds the perfect amount of shrill whine to make it completely unbearable.
I
He's the
wonder
most
if
hated man in horror movies. I'm pretty sure.
I
He's
love
a
that
piece of shit.
Franklin exists in this movie because this movie is so horrifying and the kills are so kind of like brutal. But when Franklin dies, you're like internally
Clapping.
happy. You're so
Finally.
happy.
Yeah.
I was
Like,
externally happy.
He was like the
Well-
last one to die on the good squad, as far as
It
I can
is,
recall.
yeah. And
Mhm.
I love that aspect of it because in this whole movie, you're so terrified for everyone. There's like this real, like true suspension, these things you're saying. But with Franklin, like you're
Yep.
so happy. He
Standing
gets
up
got.
and clapping, whole
It's
theaters.
nuts. I
Oh,
like,
yeah.
which is an interesting aspect. I like.
Dude.
Usually, that's kind of reserved for Cooters, and like
Yeah.
we could talk about Franklin in the Cooter realm, but it's just
Yeah,
such a
we could.
unique kind of experience to be like,
You know-
yeah, get his ass.
You know what's okay? Here's the thing about Franklin that I have to come to grips with here, and I'm not sure what to make of it. But watching this movie again, I feel like every time I watch it, I start off the movie thinking like, maybe I've been kind of hard on Franklin. Like he's
I
not
do.
so
I do every
bad.
time. Yeah.
And
yeah.
then by the end, I'm like, thank Christ that dude is not speaking anymore.
yeah.
Like it's fucking horrible. Like, but like, I don't know what it is. It's when he starts getting like really, really like, pity partied, and he's
Yeah.
like that moment where he hears everybody giggling off, and he's like wheeling his ass around or whatever. And here's the thing. I kind of get where he's coming from.
You
to
feel
some
bad,
extent.
yeah.
You feel because he falls as fuck out of his chair. He's like accidentally fall and gets really kind of roughed up. You see some pretty good gore effects just from like skinning his arms and legs as like a dude who's paraplegic. I mean, either way, like he's pretty cut up or whatever, and then he gets his ass cut open with a razor blade by a psycho hitchhiker.
Yeah,
Like,
so
I
that's
kind
the
of don't
thing.
blame him for being a little pissy.
He gets like shit on for sure. And but okay, so I think another kind of brilliance of this film is like the character of Franklin and how it feels true, because I do the same thing. I always go into this movie like feeling bad for the dude, because once we get to the kids, the first scene that we see is they're like in their like van or whatever, and Franklin's in a wheelchair, and apparently he's been talked into going on this trip, which
Yeah.
is ridiculous. Like, fuck
Yeah.
Sally for talking your brother, like your dude in a wheelchair, to like
Sally
I don't
fucked
know,
up.
man.
to this
I don't
house.
think so.
I don't
about
know,
that.
man. Like a house in the middle of nowhere. He's in a wheelchair.
He's going to a house. He's been there before.
Well, okay, but it's like, it's like it's
like,
not,
oh, you wanna
like
go to a
nobody's
childhood
living
summer
there
house?
though. It's not like it's like
yeah,
a
I mean, but
two-story
like
house.
obviously she doesn't know the state of it.
Yeah.
Or else I'm sure she wouldn't be saying, "Hey, all my friends, let's go here."
But
But,
anyway, yeah. So the first scene is like he has to go to the bathroom. He has to go like pee on the side of the road, and this huge like semi comes and blows his ass over and down a
Yeah.
hill while he's like trying to like and
Piss
So-
into a can.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then he like rolls down a hill, probably gets pissed all over himself, and then he gets like stuck back in the truck, and he's like hot, but
He's
he
so
bitches
pitiable.
about he's like he complains shrilly
really-
about everything.
He does, but he actually gets over that bit pretty quick because once they pick up the hitchhiker, it's an interesting thing happens when he picks up the hitchhiker. Is he's like, I think psychologically, like this is how I'm reading it, and maybe I'm reading way too much into it, but I see him as like, okay, well here's a new dude. He's like an X Factor. He's a little bit scary maybe. But maybe like I can be his buddy since nobody else here is like giving me the time of day that I feel like I deserve. I'm gonna talk
Yeah.
to this guy like he's my buddy, and he's like trying to make friends with this guy
He does kind of
admirably to a point. But then he's also like, "Oh, I like head cheese. It's real good," and it's fucking horrible. Like it's just the voice that like I think that really pushes every feeling you have about Franklin completely out of the water. Like you can't feel sympathetic for a guy who complains in that tenor. It's just impossible.
Well, also the dialogue they give him is actually pretty like brilliantly like written and captured, I think, because I feel like we've all
He's
been
an
in a type of
exposition device.
in a type of situation where like we feel like bad for somebody, like you want to include somebody, and then you realize it's like really difficult, like they themselves make it really difficult. And that's kind of like Franklin, like just the things that he talks about and the way he talks about them, not just the pity party, but just like he goes on
Graphic
and on about
details
these
about the
like
slaughterhouse,
things that nobody like wants to talk about. Like,
can we talk about something besides fucking head cheese, please?
and he hammers it home, and it's just like, Franklin, shut
Maybe
the
you'd like it
fuck
if you
up.
didn't know what was in it.
Yeah. it's
Okay,
just like,
Franklin,
God
thank you.
damn,
Franklin.
Nobody.
Franklin, shut up. No, nothing. Yeah, he's terrible. He's the worst. But also, I guess he kind of serves a purpose in a way, right?
He does.
He's
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, he does.
To me, he's the most memorable non-cannibal character in this movie.
Absolutely, absolutely.
other than Sally. I mean,
Well, no, I
Sally's
think
still,
he's
yeah.
well. I mean, just because she survives to the end, which I mean, no, she does a great job. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that Franklin's character is more memorable, but not for reasons that you want to be remembered.
Not for good reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
If his
Marilyn
voice
Burns, however,
was-
like she nails it. She totally nails it.
If his voice was less obnoxious, it would probably be way more easy to stomach.
true,
But he
man.
also just like he bitches constantly.
Dude,
He
it's
does.
the moment where he's like wheeling around and everybody's giggling in the other room. He's like, "Come on, Franklin, we'll have a good time." Like that
He-
shit. You need to
he-
shut your goddamn
he
mouth.
starts
I don't care how legitimate
blowing-
your complaints are.
He starts blowing raspberries into the
That's
air.
He does it like
Over
5
and
times
over.
in a row. So he throws a temper tantrum,
He does.
and he is the most screen time character at this point. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Like,
He
Yeah.
gets
I don't
some
know,
nice
man.
like dialogue or whatever.
he does.
I would like to sort of put this out there in the world. Can we start a hashtag? Hashtag fuck Franklin. Can we do that?
Hashtag
Can we get that going?
I don't think you'll get a lot of resistance there, except from the Benjamin Franklin stands.
Sally, wait a minute.
Oh my
Dude,
god.
that phrase birthed
Also,
so many jokes for us. Sally, wait a minute.
Bob,
that
you
shit
gonna play
Is
it?
insane. It's
Oh,
insane.
yes. Oh yes.
Bob's got it.
There it is. I got it.
After bragging
Wait a
about
minute.
how we got everything
Yeah, I
on
know.
YouTube, we now can't hear it on our end.
Just the one.
Whatever.
But also too, there's a moment. So the three teens get got pretty quick. The boyfriend and then the other couple,
'Cause they
and
go-
then also so they're like
Knocking
chilling.
on fucking strange houses.
Yeah, but they're also picking up hitchhikers. I think it was a different time. We
Yeah.
like get baffled by
It's a
some of that
different
stuff, but some of the
I think
movies we've
this
seen from that
movie-
time were like, oh shit, that's the
Yeah.
reality of
This
life.
movie
70s.
had an effect on hitchhiker pickups in this
Yeah.
country. I'm pretty sure.
But then so also fucking Franklin, I know we're like riding this train home, but he like Sally's like, okay, they're in the brush at this point, so they go to this like dilapidated like house, and like it's not like kept up, and there's no yard, or I mean it's just like wild bushes and everything like that. And Franklin's in a fucking wheelchair, so she's like, all right, Franklin, I'm gonna go like look for our lost friends. Like, one, give me the flashlight, because at this point it's fucking
Yeah.
dark. They've run
Yeah.
like pretty much out of gas, or like somebody took the keys
This
or
is like the
whatever.
This is the point where Franklin sealed his fate as the most hateable.
It
character in
was,
cinema.
yeah. And then and so he won't hand over the fucking flashlight. He's being a big ass bitch. And then she's like, Franklin, you can't fucking go with. He's like, I'll go with you, Sally. And she's like, you can't
go
fucking
with you.
go. Like, it's a hill and you're in a wheelchair and I can't fucking push you around. He's like, no, I got it. And immediately, so she just like gives up in frustration. Immediately, he's like, Sally, I can't keep up with you, Sally. And she's like,
Sally.
it's
And
just
like pure
Franklin,
panic.
you piece of shit. And then,
Yeah.
and then she's having to push him around in this fucking wild brush.
in a bog.
And
Yeah.
he's bitching about it. Sal, just push, get in there. Like, but it's just like, Franklin,
Yeah.
you piece of shit. And then fucking out of nowhere, Leatherface just comes in and
Saves the
and guts
day.
his ass. And I love it because
Thank you.
because
Sally, I want to
otherwise-
know the inner monologue of Sally. She's like, "Oh, oh shit!"
I love.
It takes
I
a second,
It's such a scary scene because they're in the middle of nowhere,
and you're
out
so
of the
distracted by
dark-
his bitching.
yeah, out of the dark, like fucking, he comes with the chainsaw, but also Franklin dies. So you're like, oh my god, oh fuck yes, kill his ass. It's just like such a weird combo
It's a
of emotions.
catharsis, man. It's a catharsis and terrifying at the same time. I mean, that's Sally's whole inner monologue, man. She's got to be there being like, holy shit, I'm pushing my dumbass, whiny motherfucking brother. He won't shut the fuck up. He won't give me a goddamn flashlight to search for my missing friends. And I'm pushing him through underbrush. Oh, he's getting carved up. Oh, sweet relief. Okay, now I can be afraid of the man with the fucking chainsaw.
So now that we've covered Franklin, he's fucking dead.
Yes, that's
We
the
can
full
talk
arc
about-
of Franklin.
Yeah, that's Franklin.
Now we can talk
You got
about
it.
actually more iconic scene, the fucking
Yes.
dinner scene, and like her getting like Marilyn Burns gets chased around.
Yeah.
Sally.
Well, not just that.
But
So
then she ends up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, well, no, I was just going to say the first time we see it is the two teens, they want to go like to a swimming hole, the couple or whatever. And so they're just kind of wandering around and they see this house, but it's got a generator running and their whole thing is like they're low on gas and they can't get gas. So, so they go to knock on this house. And this is one of the reasons I absolutely love this movie is this like particular scene, because the way they show it, it's like in real time. Is like these kids, they're just like, having a good time. And they walk up to the house. And the one girl, she just goes, sits like on the swing in the back. And this guy like kind of pushes his way into this house. And, nothing from the outside looks particularly like alarming or anything. And
It's run down, but yeah.
Yeah. And so he's, trying to just ask around like, hey, is anybody home or whatever? And just immediately, there's no frills to it or anything. I love it. Fucking Leatherface just comes out, hits the dude on the head with the hammer, which they had already set up earlier in the film when they were talking about killing cattle.
Yeah.
Hits the dude in the head with the hammer.
That's the first time we see the man.
See him, yeah. Just boom, bust right out, fucking Kool-Aid style. Hits the dude in the head with the hammer. It's brutal as fuck. The dude immediately drops, and he's like, at this point, probably like the strongest dude in the group. Like if you had to be like, oh, who's going to be like a formidable opponent or whatever. This dude gets dropped, and he doesn't die immediately. Like his body is like convulsing or whatever.
Yeah.
It's brutal as fuck. Leatherface is fucking huge. Just picks up and drags the dude behind this like secret door and closes it. Like that shit is. And then the girl's just like sitting out there, and they still showed in like real time. Like, okay, I'm sitting here, and then she's like, well, I'm gonna go like look for my boyfriend. And her like going into the house, and Leatherface like busts out of the secret door. She tries to escape, and I love it. She gets like out the door, and just the true terror of like, I'm outside, scoop this like humongous man, like picking up this tiny woman, and she's like flailing around, and you can truly like see his size then, because he like has no problem like holding her essentially with like one hand, like, nope, you're not, and drags her like back into the house. It's so terrifying because it's like in a matter of 2 minutes, the way they show it in real time, it's like you think everything's going fine, and Sally like gets chased around like for 30 minutes of the back half of this film, and that's terrifying. But to just like think like in a true like terror sense of like, oh, like I'm just living my life, and it would literally just take 2 minutes for everything to be terrible, especially for the girl, because she gets thrown up. So she just gets taken and thrown up on a hook, a meat hook, and is forced to be in this house and watch her boyfriend, who's just got hammered in the head, chopped up by this dude who's wearing people's faces. And like just to go from a reality of like, oh, we're going to go find a swimming hole, and literally 2 minutes later, you are hanging up on a meat hook.
You just knocked on the wrong goddamn door.
Yeah. And that's like so terrifying to me, especially like talking about like going in like kind of those backwood places where like anything could happen, and like there's nothing you could do. The isolation.
The thing about it that works so well is something that like modern movies or like just movies and like horror movies in general kind of almost don't do this. Like it's rarer than it ought to be, which is that there is no goddamn preamble. All the preamble is exposition, and it's removed by about 10 minutes. And up to this point, you have like this nice scream moment. If this was a modern movie, which we've seen in the remake or whatever, they would walk in and it'd be very, very ominous, tracking shots, close-ups on weird shit, all sorts of things like, oh shit, I think I might be in danger, and then they'd be in danger. And this movie, They just fucking walk in, the dude trips, and then he gets busted in the fucking head with a hammer.
Yeah.
That shit happens so quick.
Yep.
And it's like,
He's
it's
dead.
exactly what you said. It's so goddamn fast. And, you know, movies tend to like, they want to, like, for their big scares or for their big reveals of who the bad guy is or whatever, they don't want it to be that sudden. And if they do,
Yeah.
they do a really sharp jump scare sort of attack thing, and then they just sort of hint at the damage, which this movie does, but it hints just by cutting away. It still shows the results of what happened, which is a guy convulsing or a girl on a meat hook, but it
Yeah.
just doesn't show the explicit gore of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's fucking crazy effective because it does all of those things, and it doesn't get too explicit with what's going into what or what's hitting what, and it also doesn't get too explicit about, as I'm looking around, oh, am I getting freaked out? Like, oh, like it shouldn't be an arc, or I mean, in some movies, it should be, but in movies like this, I feel like it benefits from being like a sharp incline instead of like a slow arc.
Yeah.
And then it's not a roller coaster. It is it's one of those things where you, like Dr. Doom's Fear Fall, where you just get shot up in the fucking air and then you fall.
I agree, because it's like they're not trying to like milk it, I guess, or at least at first, because even once those two kids get taken, then the next one is Jerry, who's the boyfriend, who essentially just goes looking for him, and they had like took a blanket to go lay out by the lake or whatever, and he sees their blanket on the porch. Same kind of deal, except he pushes more, like he gets a little more. You push into the house, he sees some fucked up shit, he goes into the back room where the meat hook
But
shit
then
is.
like that's the moment for us as an audience to take in some of the surroundings. Like now we're like, well, what the fuck's going on in this house? So now we get a chance to see a little detail, a little bit of set dressing, because it's our second foray, as like for us, it's our second look in the house, so we get to see a little closer. So it's like for us, the journey is incremental. We see a little more, we see a little more, we see a little more, and then once we see the whole picture, it's still terrifying because it's an effective movie. But up until that point, it does great at like concealing all of its pitfalls for the characters and using them as our avatars. Like nobody suspects anything, so they get got. Somebody suspects a little bit or is a little bit wary, but then they get got. And then finally somebody's being just outright chased by a madman after their brother was carved up, and then they escalate it even further. Like that's the incline you want. You don't want that incline at like, you don't want it to be like little bunny hills. You want it to be like big shots, big shot up, big shot up, big shot up, and then the end of the movie, the climax should be like this fucking free fall.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie does.
And I love like kind of the dichotomy they work with it a little bit, because you're right, like these first three teens get got like immediately. Like Jerry like walks around the house a little bit, and he like gets spooked because the freezer like starts moving, and the girl's still in there like kind of alive. So she's been put in a freezer, but then immediately he gets hammered in the face. Like his death is like also very immediate, and then it gives us a little taste too of like Leatherface, like the horror that's to come, because then it like focuses on it's kind of the same way they do the opening shot with the corpse where it's like melting, where it's just Leatherface, and you kind of get the full effect of him in like full light, and his like face is fuck, his teeth, dude, those teeth, oh, it looks so
I know about
gnarly.
The teeth?
Yes,
I can tell you about some teeth.
Tell me about
Those
the
teeth. Those teeth were specifically made by Gunnar Hansen's dentist for him. Like he just went to his dentist and asked him to make him fucked up teeth, apparently.
They
So
look
I mean,
gnarly.
this movie did not have the budget for fucked up teeth to be
Yeah.
just prescribed to him by somebody besides his own dentist. I thought that was
That's
interesting.
dedication right there.
Well,
gotta
that's a
appreciate it.
kind dentist and an understanding dentist.
I assume he paid for him, but maybe not.
I mean, I assume so too, but like, not every dentist is going to take time out of his day to be like,
I'll make some.
yeah, I'll
fucked up
make you
teeth.
some fucked up teeth, sure.
But I love how it kind of sets up like the terror that's to come, because everybody gets got like quick. And so we've seen this dude who is humongous. He can't talk. So another aspect of his like terror is his squeals. He just like squeals. And so you see like this essentially like inbred monster, like size wise, that can't be reasoned with or anything like that. He's just like gonna like get you. And so the whole rest of the movie, when it's just Sally left, like it's essentially the last 30 minutes of the movie is like her being chased around by this dude. So it like really
and
sets
Marilyn
up like
Byrne,
a true terror. Yeah.
Her arc at the end, her like from her being knocked out and dragged to the dinner table onward is like, it's the perfect character arc of somebody being tortured into insanity. Like, there's not a lot of movies that are so succinct in that goal, and this movie does that.
Yeah, that dinner scene. Ooh.
It's really effective. Her laugh at the end is so fucking, like, her like laugh of elation from being freed. That woman's never going to be the same again. She didn't have a chance like 7 hours ago. She has no fucking chance now.
I think she's all right. It's not a big deal.
She's going to go home and watch a fucking football game? No, I don't think so.
I wanted to mention something I'd never noticed before. When watching this movie, like at the very beginning, when they pick up the hitchhiker, Franklin makes a couple comments about like how this dude is like a Dracula, and he comes from a whole family of Draculas because they all worked in the meat plant, and they all like, you know, murdered these animals in one way or another. And come to the dinner scene where Grandpa finally gets brought down to the table. He looks like a corpse. He looks like he's dead, but he's not.
That's like the only part of the movie where I'm like, I was always like, I think there's some magic or something happening here, because that's not a living man.
But he is like a vampire. Like, because they end up like cutting Marilyn Burns' finger and like putting it in his mouth, and he just starts sucking her blood. And I was like, you know, because up until then, it's just sort of like metaphorical, talking about these people being vampires. Like, oh, what could that mean? Whatever. And then like come this iconic dinner scene when Grandpa finally enters the picture, he is just like literally a fucking vampire.
Yeah.
Dude, oh yeah.
Is insanely terrifying.
Blood for sustenance. He's somehow alive, undead, because he sucks blood. You're right. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that either. Yeah. Oh, he's so crusty. The way that dude looks is disgusting.
That man needs some fucking moisturizer. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, he's dry.
Give that man some Dove for Men, for Christ's
sake. And also, Sally gets a little bit like where she wanders to the house, and old Grandma's up there too. She's just a corpse.
Or maybe she's alive. They just didn't want to bring her down.
She just hasn't sucked enough blood recently. They didn't bring her down for dinner. I assume that means she's beyond vampiric reconciliation.
Well, we can talk about that in part 2.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk. I do want to linger on that dinner scene a little bit longer. Like when they capture Sally, they tie her down, and then she kind of comes to at the dinner table, and the way that is shot is like so crazy impressive to me. Like with the super close-ups of her eyeball and like tears running down her face, and then it cuts from her to like her point of view, where she sees everybody at the table, and then you just see like the family slowly creeping towards her, and you get like these really close-up shots of Leatherface and like his mangled
like
mask.
Licking his teeth and shit.
That is horrific. Oh my god!
It's so
fucking Grandpa shows up.
And then they wheel Grandpa out. Like, dude, I gotta like go back real quick. Fucking hitchhiker is so good, and I just love I don't like Leatherface is fun to watch as fuck, and I'm not gonna dispute that. But I feel like the hitchhiker is half of this movie's terror for me. Like, he is scary as shit.
Yeah,
he is fucking terrifying. He's just like this live wire. He's like, the way he talks and shit, it's like, hey, it's real good. I'll make you real good head cheese and shit. Like, it's okay, man.
It's pretty gnarly.
Like, after about 2 minutes of hearing that, you throw that dude out the fuck out the door. He is not in your car anymore. What is wrong with you?
He also carried around pictures of like dead animals.
Right.
He's like, hey, check these out.
He's got a little like moleskin pouch of fucking murdered animals or whatever. Like, Jesus Christ. This guy is not saying he's bragging about knives. He's like cutting himself and shit. And even then, people's reactions in the car, that shit was so funny. It's like he's cutting himself in the hand. They're all just like, oh, like instead of being like, oh shit, get him out. They were all just like, oh my god, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Maybe have a more extreme reaction to a man self-slicing in your fucking car.
And I guess they mentioned this. I don't really know if there's anything to it or not. But as he like jumps out the van, they close the door, they start driving away, and he like has cut his hand, and he tries to like write something in blood on the side of the van.
Yeah,
or at least they're trying to figure out what he tried to write.
I always forget about that.
Yeah,
it's an interesting little point there.
Well,
like,
that's the logic. Like, for the people who are looking for logic in this, which I mean, most movies people are somehow like they're looking for like the plot points. Obviously, this movie doesn't really require that. I feel like it's almost like an experience to where you just kind of like let it ride out. But if you're looking for it, you can find it there. That dude marks the van for death. Basically, that the next stop they have is for a gas station with Jim Sidow, head of the family or oldest brother of the family. They don't know that at the time, but he's the one that tells them, "Nope, we're out of gas till tomorrow. You'll just have to hang out." Like, he keeps them there for their own like harvest. Like, that's he's the one that wants their meat. He's the one that barbecues motherfuckers.
Oh, I got the barbecue in here.
It's like, okay, well, my brother has marked this van for death, so I'm going to keep him around. And that's what leads to everything that happens. And the only thing, like, otherwise they would have been long gone. All of them would have been. If they had gotten gas at that moment, they would have been long fucking gone. And that's the brilliance of that, like, little detail. Like, that's like the strong structure of this movie. I feel like there's a logic to how this all goes down that is kind of lacking from, I would say, most slasher movies. Like, because slasher movies don't really require a lot of logic. They require grisly death.
Yeah, just simplicity. It's
which,
a
I mean,
formula.
it's its own virtue when it comes to horror.
Yeah.
But in this case, they have both, and that's why it's so well remembered. Like, every step, like Justin, like that you were describing the way that the first two victims were attacked. It's the same sort of thing. Like, what could they have done different? Probably a couple things, but they didn't do anything that I would have said that's a mistake immediately.
Yeah.
Like, nothing they did would have been like, nope, except for the picking up a hitchhiker, which is kind of common knowledge now because of this fucking movie. This movie kind of impacted the way people saw the picking up of hitchhikers, for better or for worse. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. But for me, it's terrifying, and I probably wouldn't.
Yeah. Let's get to that ending. So, Sally is at the dinner table. Grandpa is brought downstairs. They give him a hammer. I guess when he was in his prime, he could kill like 1 million cattle an hour.
He used to work at the
Yeah,
slaughterhouse.
he's the big swinging dick at the slaughterhouse.
So they got this big bucket on the ground, and they put Sally where her head's kind of leaning over it, and they're just trying to hand Grandpa the hammer so he can bash her. And I guess they're gonna turn her into sausage or whatever. But Grandpa's so old and weak, he keeps dropping the hammer and just like kind of grazing her head, and
that shit's like so rough. That's
and the
so
whole family
brilliant.
Cheering him on and like
get her,
rooting
Grandpa.
for him, and it's like so drawn out and just like horrific. It's one of the most horrific scenes I can think of ever seeing in a movie. It's fucking sticks with you. It punches you in your gut. She somehow manages to get away. She jumps through, I think, a second window.
She jumps through some windows.
So window goddamn triathlon.
Which is funny because the door has already been like cut to pieces, so you think,
true.
but she's got to bust through the window.
It's a panic move. I give it to her.
No,
she's hauling some mad ass, and everybody's chasing after her. She gets out to the road. The sun's kind of coming up at this point, and she waves down this guy who's in a semi truck, and he pulls off to the side of the road, and Leatherface comes running around the side of the truck, and they both get up into the truck, and they have this like very clear moment that sort of distracted me, where they're both in there. They could have just closed the door and like driven off.
The truck
but
driver
they don't.
is so funny.
Somebody posted that on Reddit one time, and I had never considered it. They were like, why don't they just drive away? And I was like, oh shit.
They could have.
Yeah, they're in the semi. The dude, and I watched it this time. I think it's the first time I've watched it since then, like the full movie. I mean, the only thing I could think of is like, I don't know how, I've never driven a semi, and I don't know if like you have, like, I know you gotta like get in gear or whatever, you know, it's like a big truck. It's not like it's just gonna like zoom away. And at that point, they have closed the door like to the driver's side, but Leatherface is still there with like a chainsaw. So I could understand being like, shit,
panic.
let me
Yeah.
get out of the way. Like I
I
can
know.
kind of understand.
That's the thing
You
is
could
like
get
this
away.
movie's so visceral that you don't really question bad decisions, and that's
Yeah.
like that's gold when it comes to slasher movies.
I question that one.
I
did.
question
But-
it a little
I mean,
bit, but I
it's
can
questionable,
understand
but
it
it's
a little more.
It's questionable in the moment. I don't super question it because I'm watching this guy like, yeah, like he's just seeing a dude like with a fucking chainsaw chasing a woman. Like, oh shit! Like, what do I do? I don't know. I'm running. I'm running.
Get in there. Oh shit. Oh,
Haul
she's-
ass. Haul ass.
Especially when she goes out the other side too, because then you're just kind of like reacting. You're like, and then a dude's at your door with the chainsaw. Like, I don't know how well that door would hold up against a chainsaw. Like,
Yeah,
maybe
who
it would.
knows?
Like, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah, but they go out the other side of the truck, and then a pickup truck comes up on him, and Sally waves that truck
First,
down.
he
And
gets hit in the
Leatherface,
head with a the semi
yeah, with
guy.
a pipe wrench.
Luckily, picks up a wrench that's sitting in a seat as they run out the other side
That's
of
like
the
his
semi. They're running
peacemaker.
away.
Takes
He
it to the
turns
face.
around and just shucks it and nails Leatherface in the
Yeah, he
face.
does.
He drops to the ground and cuts his own leg with this chainsaw.
Yeah.
It's the only
like-
chainsaw cut you actually see happen on screen.
Is it? Wow.
Oh,
Yep, it's the only
that's
one.
pretty cool.
Huh,
Yep.
I like
okay.
that, man.
And then the semi driver just keeps running. Like, we never know what
Yeah.
happens to that dude. He's still running to this day, apparently.
he's just not just running.
45 years
Yeah, he
of
is.
cardio.
But
I
Sally,
don't know.
He turned into
Sally-
Forrest
wanted to
Gump that
run.
day.
He did.
Sally takes forever to get in the fucking back of the semi. Oh my god, that driver's gotta be like, bitch, get in the truck. She takes.
I don't think he understands what's going
on.
on because she's the one that's like, go, 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 go. And he's like, "Blah." I don't know. I feel like it's another case of like, somebody jumping into something they don't understand yet. And they couldn't understand because they didn't see a fucking vampire come to life. So whatever.
But then
Yeah.
they drive off and she loses her mind. She laughs
And
hysterically.
fucking
then-
Leatherface does the world famous Leatherface dance.
Chainsaw
and he
dance.
dances.
Roll
And then it
credits.
like cuts. Yeah, cuts to black.
It's fucking dope. All right. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we rate?
Oh,
Texas
man,
Chainsaw
no,
Massacre.
we got to move on here.
We do. We got a lot to do. A lot of ground to cover. All right, let's go ahead and rate this bad boy out of 5. Randy, how you feeling?
I'm a little drunk, and so maybe this is coming from that. But I do feel like, and for me, like this may not be the first. Well, it might be. It's not really the first, no. But it is one of the gold standard horror slasher movies. Certainly a gold standard horror movie. I think that the fact that it's as effective today as it probably was way back in the day means that it's kind of an eternal classic.
Yeah.
Like it kind of it's unbeatable. Like it's not really unbeatable, but it's unrivaled for its position. Nobody's gonna do backwoods killers as much justice as this movie does.
Yeah.
And I think that all those things considered, as much as we've gushed about it, I just can't justify less than a 5. I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah.
All right. 5
It's
from
like-
Randy.
It's scary as shit, and I don't say that about a lot of movies. To me, it's still a scary movie, and it's a movie that left me as a child kind of scarred, and it led me to this horrible, horrible podcast that we're on today.
Hey,
I'm
we're not
kidding.
professionals.
We're not. That.
Juice. Wow, you know Randy's drunk if he's saying we're not that bad.
I'm feeling the
That's
love.
awesome.
It's the warmth in my belly.
That's awesome. Juice, what about you out of 5?
I'm gonna give it a 5-star as well. But this time I specifically watched it with Toby Hooper has said in the past, like, oh, I consider this like a comedy or whatever. And
Yeah.
I was trying to watch it from that perspective this time and that's a bold statement to make because even just
Yes.
like the sound design choices and like we said with the opening, and I was like, that's a bullshit. But I do see a little bit of his like identity crisis, I guess, a little bit in this, because there's some moments that I wish didn't exist in this movie that are like silly. And
Like what?
And thank God they don't take away from this movie, but especially following it up with this second movie that's also directed by Toby Hooper, like I could kind of see a little bit of it. There was 2 moments that kind of stick out in my mind a little bit. The hitchhiker scene, there's this wild like music playing, and the hitchhiker does such a good job in being like disturbing, but there are moments where they like toe this line of like being silly, and the like crazy banjo music that's like playing behind it all like almost pushes it there to like silly. Like some of the things he does are silly sometimes, and there's one more moment that like really I was like, I wish that wasn't in there, but it's when grandpa is sucking on the chick's finger, and he's in his, and he does like the little
He
like
does a little happy
shake.
dance.
He does like a little dance like shake where his like he's like a weird baby or
I
something.
kind of love that.
Dude, I thought it was silly, especially like
Yeah.
the way that they do like grandpa is he looks crusty as fuck, but like it takes away from that a little bit. Like they did a great job in how he looks, but that like action is like, I don't know, it kind of rubbed me a little wrong, but
Weird
luckily, weird choice. Luckily it didn't like detract.
They had to show
from
that
this
he was
movie.
actually alive without him being too.
Yeah. Well,
like
he was
he's not going to
sucking,
dance. He's not the old man from the Six Flags commercial.
But this movie, I think it's like really brutal. I always say it's like one of my favorite horror films, but it is like like I like it because it makes me uncomfortable. Like it actually makes me feel like some true dread and things like that. And like when you're getting into horror, like I think that's really important. And to hold up 45 years later, like that's really impressive.
Yeah, we're coming up on a 50th year on this.
Yeah, getting there.
So that's
Damn.
insane. So good movie, 5-star.
Yeah. This movie's incredible. I don't really have much negative to say about it. There, especially knowing that Tobe Hooper intended this to be somewhat comedic. I mean, there's this one point where Franklin just has a hunk of sausage in his mouth like it's a cigar, and he's just kind of chewing on it. That shit is ridiculous, man.
That is ridiculous.
The whole like Mercury being in retrograde is like, I love that they start the movie with that. Like I wasn't alive in the 70s. I don't know what people talked about in the 70s. You know, horoscopes might have been a big deal, maybe not. I just like that that's like incorporated in there, and like all these people are in like this huge conversion van. It just like, it feels so of its time. It's like this wonderful like 70s time capsule. You know, I don't know. I like that a lot. I like that it's still scary as hell. It birthed Leatherface, like a true horror icon. Like I mentioned before, the cinematography is beautiful. My favorite scene of the whole movie, I have to say, is like after Kirk gets killed by Leatherface unceremoniously. We go back outside, and Pam is swinging. And she gets off the swing and starts slowly walking inside, and the camera is underneath the swing and just like slowly moves with her up to the house, and you're just like yelling, "No, bitch, you're gonna die!" Like the way that it's paced and shot is like, it just looks beautiful, man. Like Tobe Hooper killed it. It's scary. It's iconic for a reason. Shoestring budget. It's great. I love it. 5 stars. It's a 5-star movie all around here from the Straight Chillin' crew. There we go.
Wow. Has that ever happened? I don't know if it has.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
I
it
think
definitely
The Shining.
has. But
The Shining
very
for
rare.
sure.
Very rare.
Yeah, it is rare. It is rare. Let's jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see if the critics and users are as fond of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Here we go.
Certified fresh to death.
All right, let's get into it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Total count on the critics, 59. So we'll go around the table, and you boys can try to guess what you think the score is. Randy, kick us off. What do you think the 59 critics rated the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
This is an interesting one because it's like one of the most well-known movies in the genre for sure, like over the years. But a lot of its negative critics, which if this had been collected the day or the year that it had been released, I think this would be a really low score. And even now, though, I think there are some like publications that probably don't love this movie. So some critics for some publications. So I'm gonna go high, but not too. Going 90. I'm going 90. 90%
90.
positive.
Okay. Bob, what do you think?
That's a good bet. I feel like it's definitely high. Not 100, but
Yeah,
it
it should be, but it's not.
Man, I feel like it might be a little bit lower than 90, so I'm just gonna go 85.
85. Oh, you guys are both so close, and it's right in between both of you. Randy's going to take it with a 2-point difference because it is 88. Certified
Damn.
fresh. Certified fresh. Critic consensus is, thanks to a smart script and documentary-style camera work, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre achieves start-to-finish suspense, making it a classic in low-budget exploitation cinema. Boom.
Accurate.
Yeah. Good. All right. Let's get into the audience score. Oozer rating 202,000. 202,000.
Damn.
So, Bob, we'll let you start this time. What do you think the Oozers rated the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I want to say it's a little bit higher than the critics. I want to. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know. I'll go 91.
91. All right. Randy, what do you think about the Oozers?
Shit. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at too, Bob. I feel like the amount of users that we have, probably this movie's such a lightning rod. I feel like there's probably a lot of negative that comes with all the deserved positives. So I'm gonna say that the users gave it a. What'd you say, Bob?
91.
I'm gonna go with 85. Swap places.
85. Man, I feel like Randy's been on a hot streak.
He's been killing me. He has.
Yeah, Randy is going to take it again. It is surprisingly lower, 82 overall percent from the audience. Yeah, 82%. So, still
Shitter's
overall,
full.
yeah, still overall high scores on this movie, but yeah, lower. Weird. I don't know. It's crazy.
That is crazy. I mean, it's not deserved. I mean, obviously, we think it's a perfect film. So
Yeah.
Well, the shitter is full.
it is a full shitter.
Let's jump into some trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
There we go. Yeah, so we have a lot of trivia and a lot of movies to discuss. So I'm going to try and go through this pretty quickly. If you guys have something to say, just jump right in.
Okay.
Deal.
So Marilyn Burns, whose character was chased by Leatherface throughout the undergrowth, actually cut herself on branches quite badly. So a lot of the blood on her body is real blood.
Damn.
God damn.
I can see that. God, not only you've been hot all day.
Yeah, no shit. A still photo taken during filming of the entire Sawyer family posing outside the house as a gag was found and stolen from the set by a visiting German reporter who took it back to West Germany with him. And this image eventually became the advertising poster for the first release of the movie in West Germany, where it had been banned for some time.
Huh.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I want to know the whole story of that. I want to know who that
Yeah.
was who stole it. Just what the fuck.
Thief.
Let's see. This starts as if it was,
Germans.
this piece of trivia is written as if there was something written before it, but there's not. So here we go. And then came the worst part of all with the climactic dinner scene. The 110-degree Texas heat plus filming lights meant all the food on the table quickly rotted, and the room's poor ventilation made the stink even worse, raising it to genuinely health-threatening levels. Filming for 27 straight hours led to several of the actors suffering genuine sanity slippage and taking
Randy.
Toby Hooper's direction. What?
Can you pick it up after health-threatening levels? You started a robot out.
I can do that. Filming for 27 straight hours led to several of the actors suffering genuine sanity slippage and taking Toby Hooper's direction as meaning they really were their characters. Not exactly the results you want when most of them are playing cannibalistic murderers. The DVD yeah, this is somebody really editorialized this trivia. The DVD commentary has Gunnar Hansen eerily recounting how he genuinely wanted to kill Marilyn Burns for a few seconds after being ordered to by his brother, quote unquote.
Oh my God.
Edwin Neal, who played
That's
the hitchhiker, said that, yeah. Edwin Neal, who played the hitchhiker, said that making the film was more miserable than his service in Vietnam, and said that he might kill director Tobe Hooper if he ever saw him again. So left an impression on the actors. Left a huge impression on the actors. Let's see. According to Edwin Neal, who is the hitchhiker / Nubbins, Texas state troopers actually shook his hand and thanked him for causing crime to drop 18%. Apparently, the message audiences took away from this movie was, don't pick up hitchhikers.
There you go.
Nice.
Yep.
You fools. Don't be
Yeah,
nice to
fools.
people.
Being nice is a one-way ticket to cannibals. During the dinner scene at the end of the film, when Leatherface cuts Sally's finger, actress Marilyn Burns slightly moved her finger so he would actually cut her. This happened because they couldn't get the fake blood to come out from behind the blade.
This fucking movie, damn.
Yeah. At hour 24, you might just be like, yeah, just cut me.
So I have a question. Was the blood that the grandpa was sucking real blood?
That's a great question, and I don't have an answer because I get my trivia.
I mean, it sounds like it would.
I guess. Like if it was shot in sequence, yeah.
If it was shot in sequence, then yeah, she was at least injured.
Yeah.
Gross.
Into his mouth. The close-up of Leatherface cutting his leg on the chains, I mentioned this earlier, was the only shot of him cutting his leg on the chainsaw was the only shot. It was the very last shot to be filmed, excuse me. The actor was wearing a metal plate over his leg, which was then covered with a piece of meat and a blood bag. His scream was the actor's genuine scream of pain as the chainsaw repeatedly hit the plate. The friction caused the plate to get extremely hot, and it burned his leg.
Damn.
Imagine.
This movie is a death trap.
That's brutal.
Yeah, it sounds like they were like
for $60,000 there, or $80,000 at the end of the day. They really skipped some union orders, shall we say. Let's see. And then last but not least, Ed Gein, on whom Leatherface is loosely based, was not a true serial killer, as he had only killed 2 people confirmed. But both of them were women. He was, however, a ghoul. This is written in the copy. He was, however, a ghoul.
Factually.
He stole body parts, only female, from many different graves. He kept some of the parts in his refrigerator and skinned one corpse and wore the skin as a dress. Ed Gein. Ed Gein. Nice guy. Probably makes great barbecue.
Little green ghouls. Little green ghouls.
Is a ghoul.
Factually. Cool.
All
Good
right.
job, Randy.
Good
That's
job, Randy.
Dope trivia.
You know, I do what I can.
You want to do a Cooter of the week?
Oh, yeah. We got to talk some Cooters. Here we go.
Cooter of the week.
There it is.
Yeah. Take it away, Juice.
All right. We got some Cooter candidates in this movie. We're talking the 4 points. We're still a little up in the air on this maybe 5th point, so we could touch on that again. But we had the 4 points: attire, smug arrogance, sexual deviancy, and manipulation are the 4 we're talking about here. We have brought up, should we add patheticness to this? We've had some discussion a little bit. Some have said yes, some have said no. But we could talk about these characters and see. So to talk about the patheticness one, I guess, like, I feel like Franklin is definitely in the running for Cooter of the week, and he is definitely more pathetic than some of the other candidates.
Yeah,
I think it's like self-imposed patheticness too, and which he does. He has like sort of a situation where, you know, it's tough for him. Like anybody,
it really has nothing to do with his handicap. It's really just
exactly. The patheticness comes from his reactions to everything.
Yeah, exactly. How he reacts to his surroundings every step of the way. And you know, he does, like, he starts off pretty rough, accidentally like peeing all over himself. That sucks for sure.
Yeah.
But still, like, it seems like, I don't know, man. He's really working against himself here.
He really is.
Not really making any friends, like complaining a lot. And there's a lot to complain about for sure. But you just kind of want him. Just want to be like, man.
You want him to get cut up by a chainsaw. When you're happy someone gets cut up by a chainsaw, you're doing something wrong.
Poor little feller.
Yeah. And see, I think that's why the patheticness kind of stands out. Michael was saying, like, no, all the 4 points kind of add up to a pathetic character, but not necessarily. We didn't add the shittiness because it adds
so
to a
broad.
shitty person. Yeah, but not necessarily pathetic. And Randy brought up a great point, I think, privately, or maybe on the Slack channel, where he was trying to compare, like, Jeremiah Sand to the dentist from
Oren Scrivello.
Yeah, from
Little Shop.
Little
You wouldn't
Shop.
call him pathetic.
He's not. He's more scheming, and he's like fucked up. He's manipulative.
He's
self-important.
Yeah, he's self-important. Well, he's like. He's self-actualized. He is what he wants to be. He is completely confident in who he is.
It's true. Yeah, he becomes a dentist because he wants to hurt people. He beats up on his girlfriend and whatnot.
And I consider him a proto-Cooter.
Yeah, he is a strong Cooter, but he's not as pathetic as Jeremiah Sand is, who offers to suck some dude's dick to save his own life.
Yes.
So I think there's a valid point to say patheticness. And in this case, I think it maybe weighs more toward Franklin taking the Cooter cake. Because he's not necessarily the bad one, but he's not like the worst. You don't think so?
Yeah,
all right, well, let's talk to other Cooters.
I think he is, but he's not nearly the grade that the cannibals are because they're cannibals.
Yeah. Well, I guess you'd have to give it to. Well, okay, so I wouldn't.
If he was in a movie on his own, he would be the Cooter.
Yeah.
No, well, so we gotta stick to the rules now. You know, they apply or they don't. So just like a serial killer doesn't necessarily mean you're going to qualify as a Cooter.
That's true.
Yeah. So I'm kind of leaning towards the old man Jim Sidow's character a little bit because he's definitely manipulative.
True.
You know, when
he's
the kids
Mo
roll
of
through,
the Three Stooges.
Yeah, he's the one that's cooking the people and feeding human flesh to other people.
It's true.
Which is fucking twisted and sick. So he's lying and he's manipulating people. I don't know if he's necessarily self-important.
I think he is. Like I said, he's the Mo. If there's a Curly and a Larry, he's not one of those. The Hitchhiker and Leatherface are one of those. He's the guy who's like hitting them on the head and calling them knuckleheads.
Exactly.
When he's also as stupid and horrible as they are.
He puts himself above the others to be important.
He's an older brother.
Oh, you're a dumbass.
That's his,
and shit like that.
And he's the one that can like show his face in public without like raising too many eyebrows to survive.
Yeah.
Also, too, the way he justifies like killing people. Well, I mean, you know, we don't have money, or so. Like he's got this own like kind of like thesis that he lives behind, and I think that makes him like kind of arrogant. So like, oh, it's justified.
And they're all kind of dressed like backwoods, kind of hillbilly-ish. Obviously, Leatherface is dressed the worst because he's wearing fucking human flesh. But none of them are dressed particularly well.
That's true.
And as far as like the sexual deviancy point, I don't know. He seems like maybe he gets a little weird towards the end when Sally like runs back to the gas station and he invites her in.
That's his reveal, man.
Yeah, he's like kind of maybe a little. Deviant,
no, he's just like barely. He's like low range Patrick Bateman at that point. He can show his face in public, but he is just as vicious and cruel. He's sitting there beating her with a broomstick as she's in a burlap sack.
Yeah,
and he's just like laughing his dick off. Like he's definitely a Cooter. I think you're on something.
Yeah, that might be him.
Like Leatherface kind of follows directions. He's more like a dog, a pitiable dog who's also a murderer.
Leatherface is
he's
more
like
of a
he's
dog.
like the family pet almost.
Yeah.
Yes. He follows orders. He doesn't have much sentience of his own. The Hitchhiker has a little bit more. He's more like a wild dog. But Jim Sidow is like for all intents and purposes, the leader of the gang.
Yeah.
He's the Jeremiah Sand of this particular cult. So I would give it to him, I think.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
good about it. I feel
I
confident
think they
about that.
all
true.
have their own. I think he's Cooter of the week. I think there's a lot of Cooter points to go around, but for
Sure.
me, he wins it.
I think he touches pretty much all the points. So, yeah. I feel good about it. That's pretty much all we're going to do for this movie. I think we're going to go ahead and roll right into our second feature of the evening. We're going to be talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Let's go ahead and kick it off with the back of the box.
What's
All right.
the back of the box?
There you go for the YouTube listeners.
Got it covered.
Got it. So fast forward in time to 1986. They took their sweet ass time.
Yeah,
before they
for
made a
whatever
sequel.
reason, which is strange because like they bring everybody back. Which I don't know. It's
Yeah.
interesting though because hearing everybody talk about it, it's like saying like, "Oh my god, what a miserable experience." So maybe it took a little while for this movie to like pick up steam and become the classic that it is regarded as now.
Maybe so. Yeah. 12 years later, we finally get a sequel to it. And whereas Tobe Hooper was talking about the original being somewhat of a comedy, this is 100% a comedy.
Well, yeah, I guess.
I mean,
So
yeah.
we've got Jim Seido comes back. We've got, the whole cast comes back. But then we also have like Dennis Hopper being a pretty notable addition to the cast here.
Yeah.
And Caroline Williams as Stretch. So a quick little synopsis here. A radio host is victimized by the cannibal family as a former Texas Marshal hunts them. So it's that was worded poorly, but I did not write it. So my apologies.
It is the back of box.
Back of box. So had you guys seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy, kick us off.
I have definitely seen this movie before. It was not very many times, though. I've only seen it, I think twice. It might have been even once. And I would recommend it, but I would not recommend it necessarily as a sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
This movie stands kind of in an entirely different category for me. So yeah, I mean, for horror fans, for anybody who liked the first one, I think they would get something out of this, but they might not like it in the same way. I certainly didn't.
Yeah, that's fair. Juice,
Yeah.
what about you?
I don't think I'd ever seen this movie all the way. Maybe I've seen scenes from this movie, but I'd never watched it as a whole. I would not recommend this movie. This movie was really, really difficult for me to get through. It was really tough. And I found it to be really bad. I thought it was a really, really just bad movie and just questionable in almost every decision that's made. Like almost every aspect of this movie I think is rough. And I was like kind of baffled by how bad it was, honestly. So I would not recommend this movie to anyone, honestly. No one. Because even if you're like, oh, if you like love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, like I don't think it like does anything for that series. So no, I don't recommend this.
All right. Yeah. I'd seen this, I think, once prior. Back in the day, we actually did an episode on this movie. It was like in our original 62 episodes, right when we first started. And I can't remember exactly who was on that show. I think the twins were on it.
I'll look it up.
I think it was twins, maybe Brad.
Maybe Brad, yeah. But that was the first time I'd ever seen it. And I remember enjoying it a lot, watching it then. I revisited it for this show.
Jack Ross, myself, and you, Rob.
There you go. Okay. The four of us. I remember having a really good time, and then I watched it again for this show, and I watched it alone, and I did not have nearly as good of a This movie is very raucous. It's silly. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's not very scary, with the exception of maybe one or two scenes. I guess it gets kind of scary. So I would recommend it lightly. It's a whole separate beast in that first movie, that's for sure. But if you're gonna watch it with some friends and have a drink or two. I think you'll probably have a good time in that atmosphere. But if you're just gonna throw this on and expect it to be like a true follow-up to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's just not that whatsoever. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to go ahead and drop that spoiler warning, and we'll get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Oh.
Randy.
Spoiler warning.
All right.
I'm drinking.
It's okay.
Same.
So I wanted to start off by saying one thing that was notable to me, having never seen this film, is both of these, like this extravaganza really actually reminds me of last extravaganza. In a very similar way to where the first movies are like really low budget and they're really gritty. Oh, last year we covered Night of the Living Dead and Dawn, right? Is it Dawn?
Dawn of the Dead, yeah.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead.
The originals.
Yeah, the originals. And where the first one's like really low budget and gritty, and then the second one is Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead's from the 80s too, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
Night of Living Dead is from the 70s.
Yeah, I know.
69, I
late
think.
60s.
69.
Yeah, late 60s. So like time wise, like they kind of match up, but in the way that like the first movies are like really low budget and gritty, and then the second ones kind of follow it up and are like more silly, but not just the silliness, but just like the overall like look and color palette, like are like between Dawn of the Dead and Texas
Very
Chainsaw 2, like kind of feel similar to me, like in the way that they look and the way that they're shot, and just I don't know, the color schemes or something.
I don't know that I would
just
make them
kinda-
say that they're similar to each other, but what's similar about them is that they differ so greatly from the first movie in the series.
Yeah.
Like obviously
I
for the first
need
one's
to-
black and
I gotta
white to
correct
color.
that. Sorry, Dawn of the Dead. The original Dawn of the Dead was 1978. Texas
Oh,
Chainsaw
really?
Massacre Part 2.
Was it really? I thought it
1986.
was 60s for some reason.
Huh.
No, Dawn.
Dawn
Oh, I'm
is-
sorry. Okay, yeah.
I thought it was
okay. That makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It just kind of reminded me,
But-
except that last year I enjoyed. It was my first time seeing Dawn of the Dead, but you guys were more on the other end of like it's not as appealing to me because you had seen like the Zack Snyder remake. I could not say that man's name and stuff
that's
like
not
that.
what-
Snyder.
I wouldn't say that is what affected my opinion of that movie. I tried to take it on its own.
Okay,
But I will say that, like, yeah, I was a little less enthused about Dawn of the Dead than I was about Night of the Living Dead, just purely because of like the socio-political commentary that was going on, or wasn't, or was
Yeah.
like just the level of silliness that was applied in the second one there was a little bit more than I anticipated, and that's kind of true in this as well. Like
Yeah.
this Texas Chainsaw 2 is obviously very, very fucking silly by comparison. But what I liked about it, I didn't like about Dawn of the Dead, which is the color palette, the look of it. I thought not necessarily it didn't make it better by any means. It was just an entirely different beast, but I like it for what it is. Those bright neon sort of like heavy color lighting and that sort of shit. It's like almost like a retro feel now. And a lot of people are kind of like going back to that sort of thing for their lighting in movies now as sort of like a jumping off point. But the color palette in this movie, I thought was really, really fun. And it to me, it indicates the level of silliness, but also like it's like the silly horror. It's the silly but grisly at the same time horror that you expect from like mid 80s stuff. It's it's fucking Brian Cisna. What's his name? Is that right?
Yuzna.
Yuzna. I
Yeah.
knew I was fucking that up. Ryan Yuzna. It's like that, just really vibrant neon sort of lighting situation, which I think, to my mind, kind of like gives this movie a context that works, even though it's not the context that you would expect from a sequel to the movie we just talked about at all.
Yeah, I think
Right.
there's a good movie. I think there's a good movie here. A big problem I kind of had, especially being able to compare it immediately to the first one, because I just watched them back to back. The first one's so tight, right? It's like an 80-minute movie, and there's all these like iconic
That's true.
set points. So this movie is, what was it? It was like 100 minutes, 105 minutes, something like that. It's
drags
bloated.
its ass in a few spots.
And this movie, so same director, same brain working here. This movie also has like some pretty major set pieces. I think if it was just like cleaned up, if it was edited a little bit better, it would be a better movie. Like arguably, like he had more money, he had more experience. He had some names in this one. It's a different movie for sure. But I think if it was just, maybe he was rushed. I don't know. It feels maybe
I can
like
tell you a little bit
rushed
about
when he
this.
made it. Yeah. Okay, that'd be great.
So, like, this movie feels very different, obviously, and like I don't think anybody, even fans of both, like myself, would say different. But Tobe Hooper directed both, and you might like question how did the director of the first one come out with this movie? Like, how did that happen? And the answer to that is that this movie was written by somebody else. It was written entirely like with sort of like 80. It was a Canon film, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
and
it's
it was written sort of like as almost a bit of a cash-in. And the only reason he's directing this movie was because the budget was so slight that they couldn't convince anybody besides him to come on. And they convinced him to come on because he was consulting on it to begin with. So that's how he ended up on this. This is not his like vision of what the continuation of the series.
Okay.
This is him taking a concept that somebody else sort of like pinned down. He had something to do with it. It's not like he didn't, obviously, but there's a lot more outside influence, shall we say, in this movie.
I didn't realize
I'm going to read this bit of trivia that I would have read later anyway. Director Tobe Hooper and co-writer of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Kim Henkel, originally had an idea for a sequel that would feature an entire town of cannibals and also be a satire of the film Motel Hell, which itself was a satire of the original Chainsaw Massacre. The title of the sequel was to be Beyond the Valley of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But the studio forced considerable changes to be made to the screenplay, even hiring a new screenwriter. And the result of those changes are what became Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
That
So,
sounds
yeah.
like all the wrong choices. Damn, I wish they would have made their vision.
That sounds way better. Yeah.
I mean, I want to see that movie too. Don't get me wrong. But this movie has, for me, it has its charms in sort of like a do or die sort of way where Tobe Hooper was given the reins to an unwieldy mayor and sort of like, steered it the only way he could. And I feel like making it, if he's going to have this silly plot, he's going to make it silly. He's going to make it look silly. He's going to have like sort of like crazy lighting and make it a color Twilight Zone episode instead of a faux documentary. Like it just that aesthetic just doesn't work for the script that they're given, I don't think. So, I mean,
I actually like that. Like the aesthetic of this movie. It's like kind of stock 80s, I guess, but
it is because of movies like this, though. Like it played its part in making that a stock of the 80s.
Yeah, I like how it looks and feels, but like the plot is meandering, and it starts off with such a bang. Like we've got these shitty college kids driving in their BMW, literally just shooting a gun out the window, all willy-nilly, drinking and driving.
With their silly 3D glasses and shit.
And they force this oncoming truck to play chicken with them. The truck swerves off the road, and then later in the evening comes back and finds them and pulls up beside them, and we've got Leatherface in the back of the truck, who is he's got like a corpse tied to his body, and he's sort of puppeteering this corpse with a chainsaw.
It's like a kabuki theater corpse.
Yeah, and it is the wildest shit.
That shit is like, that's a way to open a movie. Like, that's crazy.
But the kid kind of shoots the corpse's head, and that gets knocked off, and then you finally see Leatherface's face, which obviously he's wearing a mask, but you realize it's Leatherface, and you're like, oh my God. And of course he starts chainsawing the car, and he cuts one of the dudes, the guy that's driving, cuts his head like in half, and there's blood spreading everywhere. It's just like such a badass opening sequence.
It
You're
is.
like,
It's a movie. It
yeah.
belongs to a movie that's not in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, really.
True,
Like that's
true.
like in ways it so does, because like there's just the nuts and bolts of why that's happening makes sense in Texas Chainsaw universe, but it really doesn't make sense visually, and it really doesn't make sense like the way like storytelling wise. It is not that slow ramp. But this movie starts with a free fall, and then you're sort of like ramping back up, and so that bit of like murder is caught on tape by Stretch, our lead heroine, at the local radio station.
That shit did not make any sense to me.
Why?
About why they couldn't hang up a phone call at a radio station?
It didn't make sense to me either, because phones.
I feel like that's an old technology problem that we don't have anymore.
Maybe.
You can just.
That's what I chalked it up to anyway.
You can make that. You can.
They're
you
like
can get rid of them.
if they had enough technology that these kids could have a phone in their car at this point,
That's a good point.
I feel
That's a
like
real
you
good
can
point.
hang up a call at
You
a
can figure it
radio
out.
where you take requests.
Yeah, you would think they'd have more than one line to take calls from. That's true.
I do want to mention briefly of that intro scene, the corpse that Leatherface is wearing had like a little pouch around his neck, and I was wondering if that was like the hitchhiker from the first movies.
May I read some trivia to you?
Yeah, please do.
The corpse Chop Top and Leatherface carry around with them, also appearing on the original cover art, is that of the hitchhiker from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Cool.
The name of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre hitchhiker was first revealed at the end of this movie when Drayton Sawyer gets a grenade off of his corpse and says, "Come here, Nubbins." His name is Nubbins. The hitchhiker's name is fucking Nubbins.
Nubbins. All right.
Try and take that however the fuck you take that.
With a grain of salt. Also, that opening scene was the scene with Oingo Boingo playing. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that was that when it was playing. I wasn't really paying attention to the soundtrack there. It's fucking. I will say, like, it's kind of bad. Like, the reason that scene kind of works for me is because the corpse looks great. Like, that's, if it didn't, it obviously wouldn't play. And I think that like the practical effects in this movie go a long way to legitimizing it.
It's Tom Savini, who also did the practical effects for Dawn of the Dead.
That's right.
There you go.
Tom Savini,
connection.
Comic book. Tom Savini.
Yeah. So that kind of leads us into like our main plot, I guess. So Stretch is who we're following throughout the movie. Radio DJ. Yeah.
Dennis.
Hopper or
Lefty.
Lefty. Yeah. So she records these people getting murdered. And so she's got that on tape, which comes into play a little bit later in the movie. Dennis Hopper is this lieutenant who has been pretty much hunting down the Sawyer families since the first movie occurred. So he's like going all over Texas trying to find these crazy murderers. Brings them to this city because people are getting murdered here. And he puts out an ad in the paper saying that, basically he's on the case. He's looking for anybody who can like help, witnesses, whatever, what have you. So Stretch comes to him and she's like, hey, I have the most recent murders. I have the audio recorded.
Well, you know who he is, right?
Now. Well, yeah, but we don't find out till later. But yeah, you can say it.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know if that was like something.
Yeah.
Okay. He's the uncle of Franklin and Sally from the first movie.
Uncle Franklin.
Well, nephew Franklin to Uncle Dennis Hopper, Lefty.
Right. Uncle Lefty.
And he's been on the case for years, and people now laugh him off or whatever. But he's an insane person who has to seek justice, and he does so in the most extreme terms possible. Yeah. So there you go.
I really like Dennis Hopper in this movie, but there's like large. Yeah, he did not. There's such large swaths without him, and I think that hurts the movie. For me, it hurt it for me. Maybe not. It sounds like we don't
I
agree
enjoy
there.
I love Dennis Hopper when he's like this is somebody clearly watched Blue Velvet and we're like, okay, if we can afford this guy, we're getting this guy to do like
That's
we're
our
getting him
guy.
to be as insane as he can be. And he's given basically almost like he's given like the most rote and obvious motivation for everything. And then he's like just basically let off a leash at one point, and it's like laughable. It's really kind of like silly and ridiculous, and it at a certain point this movie stops being horror, in my opinion. It starts being an action adventure movie in the vein of like a swashbuckling pirate adventure, when you've got later on, like just to jump ahead a little bit, him and Stretch in the literal funhouse lair of the Sawyer family, each fighting for their lives with various sects of the Sawyer family.
Texas Battleland.
Dude, yeah,
called.
it's like you have legitimate fucking chainsaw duels. This movie is like,
oh my god, I hate
it
this movie
takes
so much.
You're being pretty quiet. I want to hear your thoughts. You've got some dissent.
I was saying, well, I had to eat my ice cream. I got hungry, so I kind of had to take a break from that.
You got to eat your cream. Screaming and creaming. That's what we do.
I had to take a break and eat some ice cream.
The more they stay the same.
But I almost like don't even want to talk about this movie. Well, mostly because there's really not much to talk about, and there's like scenes that just go on and on and on. Like essentially there's like, if you could like break down this movie, there's like 5 scenes. Like essentially the opening scene is by far the best. And then there's a big scene at the radio station, but I
like that scene.
I don't think like Dennis Hopper like does anything really. Like nothing in this movie makes any kind of sense, and the plot itself, it's not well written. It's like
well, my counter to that is this. Well, first of all, let's hear Rob hear his ice.
Gotta make his drink.
We're gonna make sure and squeeze every second out of this recording. But yeah, so my reaction to that is that, I mean, he's not there for a reason. I think that he's given just like the plot of this movie is just so slight that everything is blown out beyond its capacity. You know what I mean? If you're gonna like, if I was gonna criticize this movie, and I am because I'm now criticizing it, I would say that its biggest problem is that it has interesting or fun, at least, ideas for what to do with these characters, even if they're not in keeping with the tradition of the first movie at all. But what they are is kind of fun and maybe something that you could be bombastic with, but the bombastic nature of it is kind of undercut by the fact that they really milk so many scenes for all they're worth, to the point where the tension is drained.
Dude, those scenes just go on, and not only do the scenes themselves like paced pretty poorly, in the fact that like that radio station scene just keeps going, man. It just keeps going.
I like it because I like Chop Top Mosley. I like Bill Mosley's rendition. Like, and for the record, like, I don't know, like, this was news to me the first time I saw this movie, which was later in life. But Chop Top Mosley, who is Chop Top, the character, is played by Bill Mosley. The original actor, who I'm going to have to look up, and I apologies to him, his memory, but he had passed away at this point. The actor who played his twin brother, which was Nubbins, the hitchhiker. He's playing basically the same character with a different backstory and different get-up.
Yeah, I thought it was the same character. I honestly didn't. I did too. I thought that was their
first time I saw it.
I thought that was just him.
Their way of including.
Yeah.
Oh, you thought it was the same exact character? You thought it was the hitchhiker?
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, it's technically his twin brother, but I think it's partially because they're paying respects to the original actor who had passed away. So, Yeah, so and which was interesting because the original actor was a Vietnam veteran, and this character of Chop Top was a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah, that's
To
what
the
I
effect
thought.
that he had a metal plate and he was picking his brain, literally,
Yeah.
or picking his scalp and eating
Ugh.
it, which I thought
Which
was
was
fucking like that works on
disgusting.
that works on a Reanimator level. It does not work on a Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's
level. Feel me?
disgusting.
Like,
I'm not a big fan of the Chop Top character. To be
really?
honest,
I like
Me
it
not
a
a
neither,
fan.
lot.
Nah,
Oh
I'm not.
no! I'm so
just-
disappointed.
I wanted
I
him
like
to
him.
just stop talking and go away.
Yeah, I
Not
feel
a
like
fan.
everything in this movie was like
everybody talks too much in this
obnoxious.
movie.
Yeah.
Everything that happens in this movie is milk
Too
for all it's
much.
worth.
Yeah.
And that includes Chop Top for sure. But I really enjoyed him because, like, I love the hitchhiker, and he was definitely playing that. He was playing the hitchhiker with a different sort of like ethos behind it, but not that different, and certainly not enough to where I wasn't enjoying it in the same exact way. Which is, boy, what a fucking ridiculous, like, mad dog of a character who's just kind of like he's like the Joker sort of thing, where it's like everything's for a laugh, and he's as dangerous as anybody you'll come across in this movie, but he like laughs everything off, so you kind of are on some level disarmed, on a like the absolute most surface level disarmed by it. And that's what happens to Stretch at the beginning. It's like her politeness to not tell him to get the fuck out is what leads to everything that happens there, which is
Yeah, she kind
you
of
know,
gets cornered a little bit.
she gets cornered by him by politeness, which is something we see a lot.
Yeah. Not only do these like scenes go on and on and on, sometimes there are shots that just linger on nothing important. Like
I agree with that.
It just sits there, and it in that way, the pacing of this movie paired with like it just felt like everything had to be milked, but it was like so obvious to me that I was like, it was almost like a Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, where it's like, oh, we didn't actually fill this out. We just have to leave the camera sitting here and let somebody like keep doing what
But
they're
that
doing.
movie was 90
Again,
minutes.
I know. Again and again, and it just
That's
the
not good for
pace-
this movie.
the pacing
No.
of this, it was just horrendous. I thought the camera work and the shot, like just lingering on this nothingness, like for minutes at a time, it was like driving me insane. I was like, it was like really wearing on my patience because I was not a fan of the comedy. I was not a fan of that character who is very prevalent in this movie. The girl just like is just screaming most of the time, but it's not, since the tension is gone. Like I know Sally does the same, like, okay, yeah, Sally's screaming a lot, but it's a terrifying situation. In this situation, it's just like it's
Kinda
not.
goofy.
So yeah,
Let's talk about Stretch, because Stretch, when she meets Leatherface, Stretch and Leatherface, big heart around those two names.
I forgot.
Yeah.
What the fuck about this?
That
Dude.
shit is a little much for me, even as a fan
I
of
didn't
this
even
movie.
get what
I would
she was
say
doing. She was like,
it's like
how good?
Yeah,
Trying to
I don't either.
disarm him.
it was trying to disarm him using whatever she had, and she guess
Yeah.
used feminine wilds, but it was not clear that's what she
At-
was using
at
from the jump.
first.
Like
Yeah.
It did work though. So yeah, it is
it worked because
off-putting.
he is a weird, like he's
Sure.
he's
Well,
the,
yeah.
of the
I
two
mean,
stupid dogs, he's the big slow one.
Well,
Like,
no,
of course,
I was
of course.
confused. I was confused.
which makes
so
sense later, but
it felt
at the
it
moment,
felt like
was like
she used it to her advantage because she saw that it worked. But the first time she said, like, she's about to get cut up by a chainsaw, and for some reason, out of her mouth comes, "How good are you?" And it stops him. And and she uses that. So then she sees that it has an effect on him, and she like starts to play it up more. It's like,
Right.
okay, that makes some sense. I legit don't understand why she
Mhm.
said that. Like, what the
That's a
fuck?
fair question.
That might be a question for somebody who's not male. Like,
True. So like it's a weird situation where like Leatherface has the perfect opportunity to murder Stretch with his chainsaw. And yeah, she asked that bizarre question and it does disarm him, but then it like turns from maybe vaguely sexual to like extremely sexual, and he lowers
because
the
she sees what
chainsaw.
works, yeah.
Yeah, he lowers the chainsaw to like her crotch, and then she
Which
kind
is
of it's uncomfortable.
it's
And she
very
asked the same
uncomfortable.
question a
Cringy,
few
I would say,
times.
almost.
And he does just kind of like have a quick freak out, and then he runs away. He doesn't kill her, basically. So whatever she was trying to do ended up working, but the way that she like begins it is strange. But it's a
she
very
like
interesting
seduces
scene.
him
It's
Cindy
kind
to
of.
save
It's an
herself.
interesting scene though, because there's that thread throughout pretty much all slasher movies that you can kind of connect with, like the knife or the blade or the chainsaw in this situation is like a sort of a rough phallic symbol, and it's always a
very
male
explicit
wielding
in this
it.
movie.
Yeah. So it is not metaphorical. It's not subtext. It just becomes text in this like goofy sort of parody.
And it's because he's not smart enough to do anything but the most rote text. But all that said, it's like
humping his chainsaw.
He does, which is what's so uncomfortable.
Holy
he really
shit.
does.
God, this movie really does suck.
So maybe no, hang on. Maybe that's just like Tobe Hooper making light of what he sort of paid paid into with his first feature film.
I mean, I feel like you could say that as much as you can say
taking the piss
anything
out of it a little bit. Yeah, you could.
That's an interpretation, but
bullshit.
It's not explicit enough to where you could say that was an intentional choice
to
make a comment on something.
Yeah,
it felt intentional enough to be gross.
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe not in the 80s, but now it just seems like most people, if you're watching this movie, you probably have that in your brain.
People are more savvy because they've seen an extra 20 years of horror movies.
Yeah.
Slashers too.
It's just interesting to kick around. That scene is interesting. No,
I think
sure.
I think it is interesting too. That's a read on it, and to me, it's like he does all that shit or whatever. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't think there's a character in this movie that I am less interested in than Leatherface, which is a fucking problem.
I guess
Leatherface, throughout this movie, is the least interesting character.
It almost
a
kind of
family
becomes
dog, and they live up to that to the point where he's like just doing things. He's just sort of like doing things because he's told, and he's a little conflicted. They give him like too much humanity to the point where he doesn't feel real. It's kind of a weird dichotomy. It's like that doesn't make sense, but it's true. Like they give him so much autonomy. They take away so much autonomy, but they show so much hidden interest in her that they kind of like undercut him as a fearsome character. They make him kind of a puppy dog in comparison to his two brothers.
His family, the rest of his family, is really way more terrifying.
Yeah, at no point does he ever like fully go full grizzly, except for the opening scene where we're like being introduced to him.
He goes pretty. There's one other scene.
Okay, tell me.
So whenever
the face scene.
Whenever Stretch ends up surviving.
But that's okay. Go ahead.
The siege on the radio station there, and she does this kind of crazy thing. So they all leave, and she gets in her truck and follows them, which. Don't do that, but she does. and Dennis Hopper's character was apparently following her. So he pulls up, and they're all at the Texas battle land now, and that's where the second half of the movie takes place. So she's on foot. She gets out of her vehicle. She's on foot running, and Dennis Hopper is pulling up in his vehicle, and she thinks he's part of the family, so she's scared. She's running. She ends up falling through the ground, and it just like fucking Disney. They've got this massive like underground tunnel system apparently throughout this playland. So that's where the rest of the movie. That's where the rest of the movie pretty much takes place. She gets captured, and her boss at the radio station had also been captured, and they peel his face off, and they're basically skinning
off.
Like Nicolas Cage style, motherfucker. They're skinning this man alive, and they've got her tied up, and she's watching it happen, and they peel his face off, and they put his face on her, and they put like a cowboy hat on her, and then Leatherface starts dancing around with her. It's pretty gruesome. It's probably the most gruesome scene in the movie.
It should have been more gruesome than it was, though. This becomes like after they do that like seduction thing, it becomes this like almost like King Kong situation where like even he finds her and she's just like, oh, help me. It's like her friend now. And then of course, he puts his like the face on her or whatever. And that's really fucked up. It's just like,
it's fucked up, but in his mind, it's sweet.
That
That's
should have
what's
been
the
more
problem is.
brutal
Yeah.
than it actually was. And also that guy, the fact that that guy's still alive is absolutely ridiculous. Because
I agree
literally
with that.
there was a
Yeah.
shot that went on for like 5 minutes of the one guy just beating him with a hammer in the face.
Yeah, that
True.
went on for a
Yeah.
long
And
time.
over
And
over.
also, like, he's missing part of his skin that keeps his lungs in place.
Oh yeah.
So, like,
We've all
in
seen
his
Midsummer.
face.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I don't know, man. Like, that's where the movie's silliness really creeps in, is with that character, which is a shame because
Yeah.
it could have been really effective to just have his face put on her, and then that's that, and then his corpse be there. But then they made him alive still, and I was very put off by that. That was the point at which the silliness became too silly, and then there were
Mhm.
only just more silly things to follow.
And since
Yeah.
they skinned his face, they didn't even do a good job of making it look like his face had been skinned. It looked like he was just like kind of cut.
I felt
a
like it
little
was fine.
bit.
Like,
I thought it looked all right. Yeah. I mean, not amazing, but
for as much as you can do without CGI, like, you can't cut, like, that dude's face can only go so deep. You know what I mean?
I know,
Like,
yeah.
without it actually being cut.
I didn't think it
You
looked
gotta
good.
put
I
stuff
thought it
on
was
top.
awesome.
deep.
Well, that's it. Like you got to put stuff on top
Yeah,
to make
I
it
know.
seem like
Yeah,
you're going
yeah.
underneath.
To sink.
Build it up.
So,
Yeah. Looking at you, Savini. Do a better job, motherfucker.
yeah, fuck you.
Savini.
Starting a
Ugh.
feud.
God, I really just. So yeah, they do. We forgot the scene. I want to talk about the scene.
Tell
There's
us.
a scene where Dennis Hopper goes to a chainsaw store.
Oh, I love the chainsaw store scene.
He goes to the chainsaw and just
It's so
throws out
stupid.
like all this money on the table and just
That move-
picks out like 3 or 4 different chainsaws and just
Yes.
That
starts
scene is like the pro boner of the movie.
yeah,
It's-
wailing. I don't know what this weird sexual undertone of this movie is. He like starts wailing on this I don't like tree or whatever that they have where you can practice
This
your
log,
chainsawing.
test
Yeah.
log.
And
Test
and
log.
then like the owner of the store starts like creaming his
Test log.
shorts.
He does. He loves it. That is like the most unexpected thing maybe in the movie,
dumbest-
which is
God.
saying something.
I hate
But
it.
to me, it's like really unexpected because that dude I thought was going to be like, and this is like modern thinking, but I was thinking of No Country for Old Men with the like coin flip, and the guy's like, I
Yeah.
don't know if I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm stand to lose, I don't know, and like that's what you would expect from a character like that who's like in a situation with somebody who's clearly not all there,
Yeah.
shall we say.
Hmm.
But this guy is just like, oh, you got a lot of money. Oh my God, you use a chainsaw like it gives me a boner. Oh my God. And that's it. Like there's not a whole lot more to it. That
And
guy
then
just
he-
loves seeing a chainsaw used bonerifically.
He then introduces him to the log. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's
It is big.
It's log. It's better than bad. It's good.
Fuck John Kay.
Cheers. Also, like, I just remembered this. Like, we're talking about this like weird metaphor for like the saw being male genitalia, essentially. Like later in the movie,
Maybe that's
character
like a
we-
reaction to his. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
a character that we hadn't really talked about, Jim Saito, like the old man character from the original movie, comes back to this movie. They actually give him a name. His name's Drayton Sawyer in this movie.
Mhm.
So like late in the movie, where it becomes very apparent to the rest of the family that Leatherface is kind of crushing on Stretch, he has this sort of like ridiculous line where he's like, you got to choose one or the other. You got to choose sex or the saw. And the saw
Oh,
is
yeah.
family.
Oh,
And that's that in a weird way, if this movie's trying to like make some sort of point or something, that kind of boils it down in a way where I guess like maybe Leatherface is trying to have both sex and the saw. That means essentially nothing to me. But I guess if you're gonna like extrapolate from that, like if you're looking at, if you're gonna like try,
it's
and
interesting though. Like
look at the slasher movie and like break down what it's trying, like the saw or the knife.
Here's the
or
thing.
whatever it's your dick.
what you're trying to say, I don't know if that's the case. I
I
don't
don't
know
know
if this movie is trying to say a whole lot besides the spectacle. That's the thing. It's like this, like even the first movie had more, I think, that it was trying to say than this
I agree.
one. And
I
even
agree.
but saying that about either movie to me kind of misses the point where it's a thrill ride. It's like these are the facts. These are what's going on. Like It's just showing you a series of events, and you're supposed to be horrified by them. But like you're right that there's like if you are to extrapolate from that, like Jim Sydow as the leader of the pack, the Mo of the Three Stooges, he's telling them that sex is bad and murder is good. But like, and so like, I don't know if that's saying something about sort of
America.
like American values sort of thing. I don't know if it's Toby Hooper making a comment about that or if it's me reading into it, but you can read into it and say that here's the American values put like this is 80s, so this is like Reagan era morality where sex is bad, drugs are bad despite all the other things that the Reagan era was doing, and like all these things are bad, but Christ is good and like faith is good. So he's telling him that your faith is the saw, your family is the saw, but you're trying to give in to the temptations of the flesh. Like you could say that. You can make a whole fucking college ass class about that shit.
We're doing
really
the work
could.
for this movie. We're doing the fucking
Yeah,
work.
exactly.
Yeah,
But that's the problem is like whether it's intentional or not, I definitely think that the intentionality sort of is put on us like as viewers. Everything else, like I think this particular movie in relation to all the others is about spectacle. It's a canon movie. It's not meant to be more than face value. I don't think whatever else we read into it is on us. So what can you do? You just got to take it at face value, and you got to give it the credit for face value.
Let's hit up kind of the end of this movie, I guess. So they get to Texas Battleland, and then like everything just kind of slams on the brakes again. A lot of this shit should have been cut. They've got that weird section where they put the face on Stretch, and then they have like a fucking another dinner scene.
Like
where they bring
insane.
Grandpa
They
out.
really
It's
just
the
had to
same.
like
It's exactly the same.
That was
But
fan
worse.
service almost. Like, and that's like including. That's like any X-Men movie, including your favorite X-Men thing. It's required by fans of the original.
it was
As long as you
bad,
have that,
dude.
you can't say that they were neglecting the fans.
They had their like everything was done like the bone like table
bone
and
chair and the
chair
bone
and
chair,
everything.
yeah.
It just looks so silly.
You gotta
at
hit
this
her with a
point.
hammer, Grandpa.
I kind of like the Funland Underground though. Like it's silly, but it's like it's an entire different look from the first one. But to me, it plays with I don't know. It plays with sort of like Americana in a way where it's like the Christmas lights and shit. Like it's vibrant, and it's like vibrant, but in a very falsified way. Like it's like rhinestone cowboy sort of shit. Like it is.
Yeah.
It's
I like it, but the movie sucks.
but yeah.
Okay.
I didn't particularly like it. I
Don't
don't like
upset.
she falls through a trap door. This it's just dumb. And you know, some people really like silly things. I'm not a particularly like silly kind of guy. So like, you know, I don't mind
Yeah, that's very obvious.
like horror comedies, but just like this movie, it's just so fucking it's like so
nobody takes you
dumb.
as a silly guy, Juice.
I'm just no,
With
it's
your
just like
screaming and you're screaming.
dude, I'm talking about like movies.
Tell
I
me
don't
more
like
about your
No,
Yabos role.
I'm just fucking with you.
silliness.
But-
I don't know.
No, it's a
and
silly
it's because even okay, so they say like, oh, it's a comedy. But like there's not even a lot of like jokes. It's just I guess that was my point. It's just like I'm not big on comedy that's just like almost like slapstick
comedy.
silly. Yeah, like where there's no actual jokes. It's like this is a kind of funny situation. Like nothing and I understand that it's played up as more of like lighthearted, but even to say like it's a comedy, it's like I didn't find anything funny in this movie. Nothing
Can I ask you a
it like
question?
even came close to making me like chuckle or think like ha ha. Like it was just dumb silliness. And I don't
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you think of the Three Stooges?
I have never watched The Three Stooges.
Okay. Then that makes my point very hard to make. Thanks, bitch. No, it's my point would be that like, yeah, there's that's just like different taste in comedy, and I think that that's fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
But it's also like, to me, like I like watch Mel Brooks movies, and they're silly as shit. They're also kind of smart, and this movie kind of misses the smart part and just does the silly shit, which is what the Three Stooges does. It's slapstick, it's silly, and whatever else you put on it is something you have put on it. So, I mean, like, if you can accept it, like, to me, that's what Sleepaway Camp is. Rob thinks that is a very intentionally funny movie. I don't think it's all that intentional.
I've put a lot on that movie.
We agree at how funny it is, because it is funny taken from the perspective that he thinks is intentional and I think is not. In this movie, I don't think that this movie set out to be clever, just silly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel that.
And that's
I feel that.
reasonable. That's a reasonable point to take from the point of a filmmaker. It's a little bit like disappointing from somebody who was so engrossed, like obviously we were from our score of the first movie. It's like taking the Babadook and making it a comedy. How would you react to that? I would not react well to it.
Baba Shook.
But if it was silly enough and just absolutely bizarre enough over time, I would probably soften to it. I would probably be like, you know what? It is what it is. And that's kind of how I approach this movie. And it's because I was not there to watch it release. It was because that has a lot to do with how much I'm willing to forgive of it.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I'm willing to forgive a lot of this movie because it existed at a time before I'd even seen the first movie. So when I watched the first one and the second one back to back, I just see them as two different strains of the same core concept. And to me, it works in both directions. It just doesn't work as well in this direction by any stretch. And there's certainly enough to pick apart in this one that I could not do in the first one.
Yeah, let's kind of finish the plot real quick. There's not a whole lot left. So we have like a repeat of the dinner scene. Grandpa comes out to try and hit Stretch in the head with a hammer. It doesn't work. She gets away. At this point, Dennis Hopper finally re-enters the movie, and he's got one like huge chainsaw, and he's got two smaller chainsaws that he's got like this harness that's holding them.
I love that he's just running around just screaming, ah, and just cutting beams.
He's
just
like he's
cutting
beams.
screaming.
He's decided that this is like the devil's playground. He's like, I'm bringing it all down. It's all coming down. He's
he
like
runs into Franklin.
Everything. Yeah.
Who's less annoying in this movie.
Yeah. So he's uncle. It's crazy. I thought it was bizarre that we actually saw Franklin's corpse.
What made me laugh is that he actually turned on his flashlight. He's like, oh, he still has the flashlight.
That wouldn't work. That's not how that works.
These people who are like all about like cutting people up for meat, they decided not to use Franklin for meat.
They didn't eat him.
But
they decided this guy's not worth eating. Let's just let him have his flashlight and have fun.
They have Dennis Hopper and Leatherface have like a big chainsaw battle, and that's actually relatively entertaining. And fucking Drayton is underneath the table hiding, and he finds a hand grenade, and he's holding on to it.
He got chainsawed in the asshole.
He did. Yeah, he really did.
Right in the old.
Could
asshole.
you potentially say that he got his ass skinned raw?
You could. I don't know why that's more effective. I don't know why the phrase.
It's a Limp Bizkit reference, Randy.
He got his ass.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Skinned raw.
I'm sorry. I didn't watch The Fan or whatever.
Yeah.
The
Move.
The Fanatic, whatever that movie is.
The Fan.
I'm not interested in
Bob.
We may have gone to the same high school, but that dude can lick every part of my dick as far as that.
Damn, the dick, huh?
How many parts? Never mind.
There's a
That's
few
another
parts.
show. That's another show. So yeah, he gets his ass skinned raw, and then he drops the grenade, and it explodes, and you assume it kills everybody at that point except for Stretch and Shock Top, because they're like running up this staircase.
Because they just ignore the rest of them, basically.
Yeah, but they just write everybody off at that point. And they run up to this like little tower area, and that's where we run into the grandma character again. It's like
Grandma
this big shrine.
Sawyer.
Yeah, and she's holding a
She's got
chainsaw
her
on this
tits out.
shrine.
Her yaba.
Her tits are out.
They're very crusty.
Yeah, I guess.
They're,
Crusty
shall we say,
shallots.
cocooned titties.
She looks-
Cocooned yabos.
She looks like a corpse, per usual.
She look like
you
a
know.
corpse.
She looks like a corpse. And so they kind of they battle it out. Stretch rips the chainsaw from Grandma Sawyer, and then Shock Top runs over and he's like, "Oh no, you killed her!" Which I don't understand how that happens, but I guess she killed her. And then she like chainsaws Shock Top. He falls off the ledge to his death, and then she's left there with the chainsaw, and she does the chainsaw dance herself, and then roll credits. That's the end of the
So
movie.
that's the worst part of the movie, in my opinion.
Wow. That is
Oh, that
definitely
was
not
it,
the
huh?
worst. That's not.
No,
Yeah,
really,
no.
it was. It really was.
Wow. Okay. Just because it like shits on the memory of the first chainsaw.
Yeah,
dance?
because it's such an obvious, like, it's an obvious sort of like, not even an homage. It's just like, okay, here you go. Here's the thing.
You guys like
Here's
this,
the thing
right?
you expected to see. It just felt like it was easy. It was like the easy thing to have happen. It doesn't make sense for the character. It doesn't make sense for the situation even. None of it makes any kind of sense. And you know what? Like, this movie isn't built on making a lot of sense, but I feel like the last shot, the last moment of the movie should at least be consistent with what we've seen the last 2 hours.
So let me throw this your way.
Yeah.
We're doing way too much legwork for this fucking movie. This is just sort of like the cherry on top of this whole, like, the chainsaw's the dick. This is a woman taking power from the male in this like long line of fucking slasher movies, removing it, that she is now in control. She's taking control. She has defeated this fucking Sawyer family.
The only
and that
thing that has
saw-
power is a wiener.
Well, the saw is like, I guess metaphorical or whatever of a lot of things. Whatever, the patriarchy.
Whatever
Down
you want.
with the
really.
patriarchy, yeah. Whatever you want it to be, but it's her taking control, right? Boil it down to that. She's
It
now
also
in
is
control.
just like the visual of her doing that dance, like a visual of even like Leatherface throughout this movie doing the little like shake dance or whatever that he does is so, it feels so derivative. I can't think of a
this
better
whole
word for it.
movie.
I know
shouldn't
that.
exist.
I know that. But
That's
that's like where it's
perfect.
most
That's perfect.
obvious.
That's
the
a good,
most
yeah.
obvious.
I just
Like-
feel like stupid watching this movie. I feel I feel like I do.
It's
I feel like somebody's playing a joke on me. Like I feel like
it's like when,
I'm the butt of a joke watching this movie. I'm just like this.
It's like if
dumb.
like watching
And
like
people
the
think I'm
Avengers
dumb
and
for-
watching Steve Rogers say Avengers Assemble and everybody claps.
Yeah.
Like that's what they expect you to do when he does this shit or when she starts dancing at the end. It's like, but no, because
So-
I know what you're doing and I'm not impressed by your very obvious choice.
Also, Bob, I think you're giving this movie way too much credit. I think y'all
I know,
are
I'm
putting
just-
way too
I'm
much stock
spitballing.
into
I
this.
know. I think
Yeah,
it needs to though because we're
No.
shitting on it a lot, and I think
Yeah.
it needs
Well,
to
okay.
counterbalance.
I'm not saying that this is what the filmmaker intended. I'm
Yeah.
spitballing. I'm
Yeah.
workshopping,
I feel
trying to
you.
get what I
feel
can
you.
out of it.
Yeah.
So I do I remember, and I don't remember where I saw this. It was some bonus feature on something, but I know that Toby Hoover signed a deal with Canon Films, and it was like a 3-picture deal. And the thing that he had to do for them was Texas Chainsaw 2, and then the other 2 movies he could do what he wanted to do. So before this movie came out for them, he put out Life Force and Invaders from Mars. And before that, he did fucking Poltergeist and The Funhouse and Salem's Lot, the TV series, and fucking Eaten Alive and
Poltergeist.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah.
Yeah.
With fucking Spielberg. Yeah.
he
The original
directed that.
Poltergeist. Yeah.
Yeah, he directed that. There's
So
a lot
he
of
did-
misconceptions around that movie, by the way.
He did
Oh.
all of that. And then you got Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. I feel like that was just him doing that so that he could do those other 2 movies that he definitely wanted to do. This
It's
is
very
kinda like
reasonable to think.
throw-
that.
Oh yeah, I think that's reasonable. Yeah.
to like maybe put it in context a little bit, because this motherfucker
I didn't
can
love
make a
Funhouse, but
movie.
like
Yeah.
Poltergeist is a classic, and
Yeah.
as much as people want to say that was Spielberg's hand and not his, I think it was Toby. I think Toby had, he's the director. Like he has the
Yeah.
final say on everything. If he didn't make the good decision, that we didn't have the good movie we got, and that was obvious by the time we hit fucking Poltergeist 2, which was abysmal in my opinion. I just rewatched it recently, so
I've
Yeah.
never seen it.
It's bad.
Yeah, just to kind of put it in context a little bit, because we are shitting on this movie a little bit. I don't know. The man can make a movie. Nobody's going to
Yeah.
argue that.
No,
I
yeah,
like Tobe. Old Tobe. He's a good guy.
All Tobe all day.
Call us Tobe, guy.
Is there any other points you guys want to mention before we rate Texas Chainsaw 2?
Nah.
I'm good.
Sound all right? Cool. Randy, why don't you kick us off then? Out of 5, how you feeling?
You know, I mean, this is not so much of a 5-star movie, shall we say? I will say that I'm looking at a 1 to 5-star range, and I'm thinking to myself, I like this movie more than I don't like this movie. So,
Wow.
but I also recognize a lot of flaws in this movie. And a lot of my enjoyment comes from my experiences watching it with a group. So, I mean, with all that in tow, take it like I just want to be perfectly transparent about the reasoning there. But this movie's better with a group of willing participants and horror fans. But all that said, to me, it's more enjoyable than it is not. And I would give it a 3 out of 5. I would say that it's completely flawed, and it's absolutely in the same way that like Halloween 3 doesn't feel like a Halloween movie, but it feels like a fun movie on its own. That's the same sort of area this movie occupies for me, where it has the name of something superior even, or at least, you know, comparable on a different stage, but it's not the same. And to me, it doesn't compare to the original in the least. But it does have a lot of fun to be had. I will say that it drags its ass. It drags the fuck out of its ass. This movie could be a half hour shorter, maybe, like at least a few minutes shorter. I mean, we don't need to see that much of these two dickbags driving around Texas before they get chopped up by Chop Top and Leatherface. Let them get chopped up and on. You know, why are we delaying the inevitable on these bitches? But all that, like, it doesn't hinder me from enjoying this movie on some level. And I think that it's just a different kind of movie. It's just that's the long and short of it. It's a different kind of movie that they made. Toby and the writers, whatever this confluence was, it's a volcano that erupted on a different part of the planet. And I don't think that that's wrong, but I do think that the result was less stellar than what we had with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I would give it a 3, and I would recommend it to. I would just recommend it in general to horror fans, as long as they kept their wits about them and understood that it was not the Texas Chainsaw 1 that you had already received. So
true.
Yeah.
Cool. Juice, what about you?
I hate this movie, and I hope to never have to watch it again. It's really bad. And I want to go ahead and clarify before I get my final score that I actually, like, it doesn't, I don't hold the opinion or, like, the grudge or whatever. I don't think this affects my thoughts or anything about the original one. So it's not like, oh, this cheapens the whatever, and it's not true. Like, just as a movie, I think this is a really, really, really bad movie. I think the script is almost nothing. I think the pacing is wretched. A lot of the camera work, I think, is really bad. It does have its own aesthetic, but it's on a personal note, it's not particularly, like, appealing to me. I think the acting is not particularly good, and I feel like a lot of it is the dialogue, which is also really bad. But I just found it very obnoxious, very silly, very, like, tedious, not particularly interesting in any fact. There's almost, like, no, like, interesting factor to me. And I'm gonna give it a 0.5 star.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I can give it a 0.5 star. And I will say that a lot of that, I guess, is that opening scene was fun. Like, or that opening scene was the best for sure. So, yeah, that's yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't hate it that much for sure, but it's not a great movie. Like I said, it's a decent party movie. I think specifically that helps because if you have people to talk to while you're watching it and you're having a beer or two, it kind of helps fill the gaps in between shit that actually matters in this movie. It's bloated. It needs to be cut for sure by like a solid 20 minutes. There are some decent gore effects provided by Tom Savini. There's a few solid set pieces. Specifically, the very first scene is dope. The scene in the radio station is interesting, but it's far too long. And again, when they finally get to the playland area, it's interesting. Like the setting is interesting, but what happens once they finally get there, which is roughly half the movie, is like a shitty repeat of the third act of the first movie. And then you kind of get Dennis Hopper sprinkled throughout it. But it's just like the same beats, but it's not scary and it's not really funny either. It's just kind of wonky in a way. Get Shock Top out of here. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people like Shock Top.
No.
That dude fucking
Yeah, I don't like him either, man.
It's not funny. It's not scary. He's just
God.
obnoxious.
Me and Bob align for once. It's usually me and
Yeah.
Randy. Nope. Yeah, I agree.
I like him, man. I really do.
I'm not a fan. I do really like
If we had more
Stretch's
time, I'd
character.
discuss
I like Stretch's character. I think that was a solid
Really?
addition. I think
Who? Did you say who?
No, he said really.
I
Oh,
said,
they said
really.
who?
No.
Okay, I got you.
I liked her. I like the whole like radio station sort of aspect of it, and I think Dennis Hopper is wild enough, but they needed to like tighten that up and probably get him into more of the movie. I think that would have helped like the insanity ratio going on here. I think all of like the like metaphorical stuff we talked about definitely was not intended, I don't think, but it's fun to kick around and think on. I think it's very interesting. In retrospect, this coming out so long ago, it's interesting to talk about. Overall, I'm going to give this a 2.5. Not great, not horrible, just kind of down the middle, 2.5. That's going to put our aggregate at a 2.0.
Can I tell you something, Bob?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm looking back at our original review,
Mhm.
which was your pick, by the way. Episode 44, and you gave it a 2.5, and
Whoa.
I gave it a 3.
Whoa.
So we both live up to
Consistent.
our previous lives.
That was
That's
like, what,
really
4
interesting.
years
And it is
ago?
interesting, right? Yeah.
Because I
We've had a
enjoyed it
lot of
so
horror
much
input
more.
since then.
We haven't changed at all. But
Yeah,
I remember it so differently. But it's the
Yeah,
same
And
score.
what's interesting, I am so surprised that I gave it a 3, whereas you gave it a 2.5 at that time. It ended up getting a 2.3 because Ross and Jack were not as big of fans. Ross
Yeah.
giving it a 2 and Jack giving it a 1.5. And for those who are interested, you can go back to our years of having terrible sound, even worse sound than now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And episode 44, we reviewed this movie, and like you and I are very consistent in our beliefs on this movie.
That's
So,
kind of mind blowing to me. Wow, I didn't
me
even.
too, man. I just looked it up just now, but
I thought you were going to tell me I gave it like a 4 or some shit.
no, yeah, I mean, no, we were both very consistent. So, I mean,
Cool.
it's a
Cool.
it's a movie for people who want to watch this movie.
God,
Let's.
I guess so. I mean,
It's for
there's a
somebody.
lot of complaints to be had for sure, and that's something that can't be said for its predecessor. So, I mean, it is what it is, I guess.
I know. I went on the 2 opposite ends of the spectrum here, boys. Damn.
Man,
You did, but I don't. Yeah, you really did.
really did.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's fun. It's fun to like see that result. Rob,
It is.
go ahead.
Let's jump into a Rotten Tomatoes segment once again and see what the critics and users think about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Here we go.
Certified fresh to death.
All right, boys, let's hop into it. This time we have 31 critics who reviewed this movie, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Oh my god.
Dennis Hopper. Huh.
Very drunk.
Yeah, we've been going a while now, Randy. So let's go
I don't
through
have any
this.
more mixed chaser, so I'm just drinking straight.
Oh, Randy.
You're drinking straight Sailor Jerry.
No, it's not Sailor Jerry. I guess that's not
Okay.
quite straight because I didn't.
Oh, it's Red Stag. That's so much worse.
It's not as good as when I was
Randy.
18.
Oh no, you poor. All right, 31. Rob, I'll let you go first this time.
That's wise.
Okay.
31 critics for Texas Chainsaw 2.
It cannot be high. I'm gonna go. It's not even the comedy number. I think it's lower. I'm gonna go 55.
55. All right, Randy.
I mean, I'd be a fool if I gave it too high of a number. It's a canon film. I am going to give it higher than Bob out of necessity. I'm going to give it a 60. It's the over-under for the two of us. It's a tough one. It's just the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Randy, you went the wrong way. Bob, you didn't get whooped. You didn't get swept this.
Finally.
I know.
Hey, congrats on your marginal win.
It is not fresh. It is 48% rotten, which is still too high for me. Critic consensus is, without the tense atmosphere of its predecessor, the stakes feel lower. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 still shocks with a gonzo blend of over-the-top humor and gore. It wasn't funny. Well, I don't get where this humor.
The word gonzo, I think, is just generally overused.
Really? I don't see it used that much.
It's not used when it is used. I feel like it excuses a lot.
Oh, okay.
I'll explain why in the trivia section.
I gotcha. All right. So let's get into the audience score. A lot lower than the OG, but still pretty solid. 50,000 people have rated this on the Oozer side. Randy, you get to go first this time. What do you think?
I think that the people who are most apt to most inclined to vote on Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 are positively influenced by its existence. So I'm going to say 85%.
Okay, 85.
It's
Rob.
higher than that's higher than I now recognize that that's a mistake, but it's 85% is the answer that I gave. So
Randy
I
is
stand by
drinking
it.
Straight Red Stag, so take it with a grain of salt. It is definitely lower than that. I'll just go ahead and say 80.
Yeah, it's definitely lower. It is lower. It is lower than the critics. It is 44% for the audience score. 44%. This is not a positive.
The critics like this movie more than the audience?
Somehow, a little bit.
I'm really surprised by that.
It's all the subtext.
This
the
is
nuance
not
subtext.
received
That's what it is.
very well. It's even like the pictures of this. This is a dog shit movie. It's really it's really bad. We got some movies.
I love
Juice
this.
will hate a little.
Oh my
early.
god, this is the perfect
Yeah, we did.
cast for
We
me to
did.
get blitzed.
This is a little preamble. Except I was actually mostly quiet. Maybe because it's a double feature.
You were
and it's
very
just
quiet, and that means you hate it, as
It's
far as
just-
I can
It
understand.
almost like I just like going into like the extra hour of like covering movies. Like it's not. I don't even feel like it's worth talking about. It's like really bad.
This is so funny because we had Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead last year, and the previous year we had Ghost Watch and
It's true. Yeah.
what is it?
NUF.
Yeah.
Where
Which
it's like,
so we've
here's
had a
good
consistent
movie, and then here's the one.
Here's a
that's
movie
not
that's
as
slightly
good.
lesser but similar in some capacity.
And we always got to
I
talk
guess
about the
that's
worst
pretty true.
movies.
Next year we
second,
got to
yeah.
do like the Thing original in the 50s and the Thing in the 80s, and we'll see what's what.
Yeah.
What?
Or something
Cool.
similar.
Randy, let's get into some Red Stag trivia. Trivia sponsored by
Red Stag
this
trivia.
evening. Here we go.
It's totally time for trivia.
It's just not working.
No, you did it.
Oh.
You
Yeah,
did
it worked.
It's
You
totally
did it.
time for
I-
trivia.
Well, I don't know. I'm drinking Red Stag.
I am not editing that.
Randy,
Please don't. I
it's
encourage
totally
you
time for
not to.
trivia.
Me getting a job is less important. Let's see. Part 2, Chainsaw Massacre. We only have a few things. There's a lot of trivia that's here, but I don't want to cover all of it because there's just a bunch of it that is just not that interesting to talk about. So we're going to go through it, a few things quickly. Caroline Williams, Stretch, wanted to make a strong impression at her audition. So when she was called in, she went to the end of the hallway and ran screaming into the room where she pulled Toby Hooper from her chair and LM Kit Carson out of their chairs and used their chairs to barricade the door before she began her scene. That is how she won the part.
Oh, she's dedicated.
Impressive.
That's that's a bold ass move. You gotta give credit to that. I love that shit. So good for you, Caroline. In the original screenplay, Stretch was going to be Lefty Enright's, that is to say, Mr. Hopper's illegitimate daughter. And I don't think that would have added a single goddamn thing to this movie.
Why?
So a worthy uninclusion of this movie. Bob, you
also,
agree?
I wanted to point out real quick something, God, we didn't even talk about that's really dumb. This dude is desperate to catch these people, old Lefty. He starts off the film like, you have to print this in the paper. And a chick comes to his hotel room with straight evidence. And without even listening to it, he's like, get the fuck out of here. It's like,
he doesn't listen.
Doesn't make a lick of sense, this movie.
Like, okay, well, we know this from years of conspiracy theorists existing, that any level of evidence, no matter how dubious, is absolutely acceptable. But this was a simpler time where conspiracy theories were more rigorously vetted.
Stupid ass movie.
So speaking of Dennis Hopper, and this is a paraphrase, thought that this was the worst movie he's ever been in.
He's got to be right.
He's not, because, and this is, he agrees with me, by the way.
Okay.
He later said the same thing about Super Mario Brothers 1993, where he played King Koopa and really shat the bed.
Damn.
The man accepted. I mean, he made some questionable decisions, but he's
80s.
such a good actor. That was the 90s. The Super Mario Brothers was the early 90s. Yeah,
was
for
it?
sure.
God damn.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, damn. Which one's worse? I don't know, man.
Super Mario Brothers is definitely worse, but it's also like a kid's movie, so you can give it the credit that a kid's movie
Maybe
deserves.
that's what it is. Maybe I chalk it up to it at least had an identity or something. I don't know.
Well, I don't know though, because that's the problem. Because Super Mario Brothers, the movie, it had an identity, but it was not an identity that any kids who played Super Mario Brothers would recognize.
That's
so
true.
I don't know. I don't know that it's better or worse. It just certainly is different. So
Every time a company of that size all size changes anything, it starts.
Continue.
Somebody is very, very confidently telling me what to do from a ghostly apparatus.
Ah, yes.
Okay. So
this is what you come to YouTube for.
This isn't going to be cut. Rob's not going to go into this and cut it.
This is how the sausage is made.
The sausage has been made. So Bill Moseley created a short, he played Chop Top, by the way, created a short film parody entitled Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where he played a small role as the hitchhiker and showed it to a screenwriter who was able to show it to Toby Hooper. He was actually applying for SNL. Hooper loved it and kept Moseley in mind for a part should he ever make a sequel. When the time came to make Chainsaw 2, Moseley was contacted for the role of Chop Top, the hitchhiker's twin brother. So that's how we have Chop Top. That's how we have Bill Moseley.
The old crop top.
Yeah,
True.
You're just taking the pun and reversing it back to normal. So I don't know how that's
right.
comedy.
All right.
But yeah, so like
Alright.
Texas Chainsaw Manicure,
was
I kind of
drinking.
want to see that shit. He applied that to fucking SNL. I want to see how fucking Lorne Michaels reacted to that shit. All right. So we have a couple more. A lengthy scene in which the Sawyer family goes hunting for prime meat, quote unquote, was cut for pacing, but is present in the gruesome edition DVD. Rob, have you seen these cut scenes?
I haven't, and I
Rob,
have
I'm
no
assuming Juice has
intention.
not.
Rob,
It's
did you buy
already
the
too
blue.
long.
Yeah, it is.
It's already too long. I do
I'm
have
going
the
to go
Blu-ray.
and say something, Rob, and you're going to agree with me by the time I'm done talking.
Okay.
You will regret that. You will regret not watching the bonus features.
No, watch
Oh,
it.
really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Why? They're crazy?
Here's the last piece of trivia I have. John Bloom was cast. His name is listed in the closing credits, but his scenes were edited out of the final version. John Bloom, who is also known as Joe Bob Briggs in the horror community, was in this film before he was cut. And I will tell you something. I have watched his bonus features. I have watched his excluded film. It is on YouTube. And let me explain it to you, because it's great.
Please
It's
do.
great. So, John Bloom, aka Joe Bob Briggs, is walking down a flight of stairs, which is apparently in a movie theater, because that's how that works. In with a I believe a model and an actress. I can't remember the specifics of that. They're not factored in greatly in the film. But he walks down some staircases. He is describing to them how a quote-unquote titty is popped in a squib where they're shot in the chest and a titty explodes and fucking blood pops out. He uses the word titty a lot, and that's why I emphasize it. And he's describing it to these women, and they're like, oh, whatever. And then he walks down, the three of them walk down, and they see an entryway for a truck, and fucking Leatherface pops out of it, and he's like, oh, is that a Mr. Goody truck? And then fucking Leatherface comes out, and he starts slashing shit up. Not any people, just things. Just starts slashing things up. They just neglected to show the two women. They just disappeared. And John Bloom, a.k.a. Joe Bob Briggs, requites this specific set of lines, and I'm going to quote it. God damn! Well, nail my dick to a tree. 3.5 stars? That's saw foo.
Oh man,
Bob, that's
I'm
what you
definitely
coulda had.
going. I'm going to watch that. I also will add some of earlier Joe Bob's stuff. I'll just suffice it to say, man, yeah, I've been drinking too. I prefer the more woke version of Joe Bob. He says
I agree
some
with that.
things that are.
By the way, can I say something about Joe Bob in this
Yeah.
shot? Striking resemblance vocally to Franklin. A little bit of fucking
Whoa.
that Texan accent is there. He's not as whiny, and I give him full credit for being a not as whiny person. But
Cool.
the man certainly has the same accent. And I had, with this movie being Texas Chainsaw 2, I had flashbacks. Said some more flashbacks to Franklin whining his ass off and throwing tantrums. And I had some concerns. I had some concerns about Joe Bob's cut appearance. But fortunately, he instead said, God damn, we'll nail my dick to a tree. And I fully endorse that.
Thank God.
So, yeah.
Thank God he said that.
So that is our trivia for Texas Chainsaw Part 2.
Let's get into Cooter of the Week. We're talking Cooters yet again, sponsored by Red Stag. Here we
Cooter of
go.
the Week.
Take it away, Juice.
Cooter of the Week. So there's not even a lot of characters in this movie. You got the DJ, you got Stretch, you got Dennis Hopper, and then you got the Sawyer family. I would go with
Stretch,
all,
you got Lefty, and you got Sawyers.
I would go Crop Top. I'm thinking Crop Top. He's definitely got he's definitely got the attire, wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah, they all do.
I
They
mean,
all have
anybody
the
who's
attire.
except for Drayton. Drayton is the face,
Yeah, he's
You
kinda
know,
a
the
normal
face
guy.
of the organization.
I'll mention this very briefly. I like Drayton in this movie specifically because of the scene where he wins the chili cook-off trophy.
Yeah,
I like
that shit's great.
I like that scene.
I will say it, like, dude, Drayton, I kind of like him in general because he, like, when he does go crazy, it's like, it's this very, like, staid version of it. It's like this, he's barely containing it. Even in the first movie when he's, like, bashing her with a stick or whatever in his car, like, even everything before that is very, like, oh, very, very believable as a normal person who's just, like, a normal Texan just doing his shit. And in this movie and in those moments of that movie, he's just nuts. So it's like later on in the series you have what's his name? Flat Circle. McConaughey.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
McConaughey
Part
shows
four.
up and he's
Part
kind of
four.
fills that same role where
Yeah.
it's like the believable real guy, normal guy who also harbors the dark secret of being a huge piece of shit cannibal. But
we gotta
like
reel it in. We're talking Cooters, part 2. That's what we're
Okay.
talking.
Jim
Cooters,
Sydow,
Randy.
he's great.
Cooters.
Jim Sydow is a good cooter.
I gotta for me. I think part 2 actually is going to Leatherface. That's where I'm
The
leading.
dong thing, sexual
Oh,
deviancy.
Yeah. Okay.
Sexual deviancy. He's also got the attire. Self-importance. He doesn't have enough character
No.
to really give that to him. I don't think. What's the fourth point? I'm blanking.
Manipulations, mug arrogance.
He doesn't manipulate shit.
He doesn't. Yeah, I guess he doesn't really have the capability.
He is a little
to
pathetic,
manipulate much. He's a little pathetic. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a little pathetic.
He's pathetic because he's run train on like his love, whether it's like deserved or
Run train.
good. His
And
love
Damn
for Stretch is not respected by his superiors, quote unquote. But he doesn't. Something's happening.
Oh,
You're so
fuck.
drunk.
I have
Well,
comments.
What?
You're still drinking it straight. Oh my lord.
What else? I don't know. Do you guys have any other Cooter runner-ups or like options? Or
I really think that
I could see where Leatherface with the
Hopper.
sexual deviancy.
I think Hopper could.
Hopper?
Jim
Self-important.
Hopper, man.
Self-important.
Definitely.
He gets weird with those chainsaws.
He's willing to put Stretch in this horrible situation.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he didn't like make her follow them, but he does like.
He manipulates
like-
her because he knows she wants to make it big.
Yeah,
Quote,
he
unquote.
encourages her to play it on the radio, but he doesn't know
Yeah.
that they're going to come for her. Maybe he does. I don't
He
know.
does. He
He's
says
kind of
that
a
he used her
shitty-
for bait.
He's at least
oh,
shitty.
okay,
There's
okay, okay.
only
He's
shitty
shitty.
characters in this movie.
Yeah. So
manipulation.
Except for Stretch, who ends
Manipulation.
up being shitty.
Self-importance, attire. He's just kind of like. He's just kind of normal, I guess.
Yeah.
Sexual deviancy.
No,
not really,
And he's
but
not
he kinda-
pathetic.
He gets a big old chainsaw dick, but so he's kind of.
Yeah, there's like some low level cooters.
Yeah.
It could kind of sway a couple different ways, but nobody hits real strong.
No mega cooter, really.
No,
There's
I
no,
don't know.
yeah,
Old
there's
crop
nobody who
top,
hits
he
it the
rubs
same
me
way.
wrong way.
The thing is, like,
Yeah, I don't like him, but I'm
Leatherface is too pitiable. Like he's not just he's not pathetic in the same way that you like want to see a cooter. He's pathetic in the sense of like Bobby Hill is pathetic, where he just doesn't know how to approach a woman.
Well,
He-
let's run down Chopped Up. Let's run him down. So he's definitely got the
All right.
attire. Holy Lord.
Yeah,
I think he's pretty self-important because he really like runs Leatherface. Like he kind of like he's his like he
Kinda,
says
yeah.
dog. He actually literally says dog will hunt. Like in
Dog
reference
will.
to,
That's his
to
big
Leatherface.
thing. Yeah.
So I think he's kind of got that like manipulation. You could say he manipulates his brother.
He
to
feels
do
a
his
little
bidding,
more
I think.
pathetic, like the way he's got like the head
You know-
plate and like scratch it. Like he seems like a pathetic kind of guy.
I don't know if this plays in at all, but Primus sampled Chop Top's line about dog will hunt for their song "Jerry Was a Race Car Driver." So
No shit. That is really interesting to me.
to you and mostly you.
I don't think Chop Top has anything going on for like sexual deviancy. So we've got
Not
like
really.
3 people that kind of hit
He
2 to
just
3
likes
marks.
records or hates
Yeah.
them. I can't tell.
I don't know. I think I'm just sort of vibing Leatherface on this, but there's no definitive. I
It's
don't
up
think
in the
it's
air.
kind of it's a little up in the air, a little gray.
Let's just say the Sawyer family.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah,
We do the Sawyer
Just in
family.
general?
You know, whatever.
In general?
Whatever, man. What we run this long ass fucking podcast.
yeah, because that's pretty much everybody, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can do that.
Sawyer
I'm down.
family. The Saw is family. Cheers.
hmm So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Let's go ahead and jump into our Hotline Scream segment. We got 4 voicemails this week.
Oh boy. We start with
4.
Steve.
We can start there if that's where you want to start. So
Okay.
just to quickly recap, we've been posing a question every week for the month of October to all you listeners out there, and trying to make sure I'm being recorded. I am not being recorded. 2 seconds.
What?
Hang on.
Okay.
Why? Are you
So-
not being recorded?
Filling time.
Save.
How's
Save.
things with you, Juice? Not being recorded. That's a big problem. My
I'm in-
connection's
I'm
unstable.
in panic
apparently.
mode.
No, it's fine. It's I got everything.
Shock, disbelief, panic mode.
No, everything is fine. I just the last 10 to 20 seconds for some reason is weird.
Well, jump
by
back.
weird-
Well,
By weird, I mean it's not there. So
Oh,
I caught
okay.
it though.
Okay.
I caught
All right.
it.
this is why you watch the behind the scenes YouTube. Here we
see
are.
us free.
You can't see this anywhere else.
Check
Look,
out my
my hat's
crazy
coming off.
face.
Oh shit!
Check,
You're
I'm gonna show my wiener. No, I'm not gonna do that.
Dude,
Check.
show it.
check.
Don't
Check.
tease me, Juice.
We saw naked Bex earlier.
Oh, you
Listeners.
wish.
We
buddy.
did.
You wish.
We did.
I
Okay.
worked so hard.
I think check. I think we're good. Let me just triple
think
check. Check.
Maybe
Yeah.
we were good.
We're back. I got you. I got me. We're good. Let me make a note so that I know to edit that. Okay.
God, I'm
Yes,
gonna
we got
drink this whole
4.
fucking bottle. I'm about to lose my shit.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
We got 4
holy shit,
voicemails this week. And just to recap, each week for the month of October, we've been posing a question for all you guys to call in and answer. This past week, we said we wanted to hear about your paranormal experiences, whether it be regarding ghosts, UFOs, Sasquatches, anything sort of out of the ordinary. Wanted to hear about your stories. So yeah, we got some messages here. Randy, you said you wanted to start with Steve.
Let's
Is that
start with
right?
Steve.
Let's start with Steve. Let's see what he's got
Scuba
to say.
Steve.
Damn you.
What up, nerds? This is Steve from New Jersey. That's the only opening I have. I wanted to drop you guys a quick message. Some of you were talking about Haunting of Hill House on the last episode. So I watched that with my friend and enjoyed it. I thought at some parts it was maybe a little drawn out or convoluted, but for the most part, I thought it was pretty good. The second to last episode, I believe, I wanted to call in because I think this show had the greatest jump scare that I've ever experienced. So, spoilers, I suppose. In the second to last episode where the 2 sisters are driving towards the house, they're trying to, catch the dad and brother before they set it on fire or whatever. And they're just driving in the car and they're having a conversation, arguing as always. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the dead zombie sister chick, her face comes screaming from the back in between the two front passenger seats, the driver and passenger, screaming like I've never seen or heard before. Now, my friend and I, I'm 6'3", 270. He's a big guy too. We both shrieked in utter terror. I'm talking, it wasn't like, it was like a startled shriek. I drew in a full breath. fucking let out this scream of terror that I never have in my entire life, which was followed by about 10 minutes of laughing our asses off. So, I don't know why I thought of that story. You guys mentioned the show last week, and I don't know. I thought that was amusing. On another note, the movie Autopsy of Jane Doe, we were watching that a while ago, and we're watching, and my friend turns to me and he says, you know, at what point do you just say, let's get the fuck out of here? Literally, the next sentence out of Brian Cox's mouth to his son, he turns at him and he says, let's get the fuck out of here. My friend spit his fucking drink out. Couldn't believe it. What do you know? Okay. Keep buying DVDs. All right, see you guys.
Steve. You're in my monologue, my inner monologue. That's who you are. It's crazy.
Don't encourage Bob. Don't encourage him.
What? Who am I encouraging? I'm encouraging Steve.
No. I was talking about Steve, not to encourage Bob.
Oh.
He said buy more DVDs.
We don't encourage Bob as a rule, but I'm
Don't
going to say that like that scene that you're talking about from Hill House specifically, that scene has gotten me at least twice. 2 times I have been very floored by that scene. I'm very terrified by it.
Yeah. As soon as he started describing it, I was like, I know exactly what he's talking about because it's fucking scary as shit.
It is. And it's because they do such a good job of concealing it. And the reason they can conceal it so well is because we're invested in the character-driven drama of what's happening.
Randy, you're sober as a judge.
Totally sober
Red
as a
Stag
goddamn
Randy.
I could be on the Supreme
Stag
Court
Randy
with this
over
shit.
here.
No, but I'm serious. That
He's
scene,
good.
it scared me multiple times,
scary.
and it's truly because like the characters are so strong. They're so strong, and they're like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I can't add to it more than that.
Yeah. Also, big shouts outs to The Autopsy of Jane Doe. That movie's pretty dope.
That movie's
I
pretty
still never
fucking
seen
good.
it. I never seen
Brian
it.
Cox
good.
is an untapped legend. He's tapped only so much that you and I have noticed, and that means he should be in many more things.
I have tapped his ass, but that's all. Nothing else.
Well, I mean, good for you. Good
Thanks.
for you.
Thanks for calling, Steve.
Thanks, Steve, man.
Also, that is the same Steve that has provided us with the really awesome jingle for our segment 2.
Oh, yes.
So,
Thank you, Steve.
Is that Steve the phrase
Mhm.
stand?
yeah.
Hashtag appreciate you.
Hashtag appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. Who are we hearing from next? Looks like we got a voicemail from Jackie. You got that, Randy? Ready to go?
Got it.
Let's hear what she has to say.
What's up, guys? This is Jackie B calling from Chicago. I wanted to tell you guys a story about last Halloween. Well, I guess it was 2 years ago, 2 Halloweens ago. Some friends and I went to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, right outside of the city. And we walked in, and there was a security guard working there, and we were asking him. Apparently, it's one of like the most haunted cemeteries in the U.S. And we went there and was asking the security guard that was working there, working the night shift, if he had seen anything spooky. And he told us a story about how every year he sees there's like this little swamp, boggy area in the middle of the cemetery, and he told us about how every year he sees a red light coming up from the bottom of this swamp. I don't know if he was just messing with us, but it definitely freaked me out a lot. Don't usually believe that kind of stuff, but he was pretty convincing. And yeah, that's my spooky story. Thanks for all the content. Keep it up, guys. Keep chilling.
Jackie, thanks for calling. It's good to hear from you. That's a pretty intense story, man. I don't know that I've ever like had a guy really tell me something for real like that. Like,
Yeah. Nobody's ever
Especially
tried to be
like
that
a
real
red
with me.
light. Also, too, I don't know, like, if that was my job, I don't know if I'd keep it. So it's hard to say, like, you know, like this guy's been
That's a
working here
good
for
point.
years, and
God,
every
that's
year
why.
he does it. It's like, I'd probably.
I don't know,
peace
man.
out.
I'm right outside this fucking town. I feel like Jackie's got to lead me into some danger. I might have to go check this out myself.
Yeah, but also on the other side of the coin, you could just be fucking with you, trying to get a rise out of you.
Could be.
Jackie
could
might be fucking with my whole life. She might. Who knows? Who
Red
knows with
Stag
Jackie?
Randy.
Right. He's just chilling.
Fucking with my whole life.
That'd also
Fucking
be
my
a
whole
job where you
life.
probably sit around a lot and think of fucked up shit to say. So,
Probably.
I'll check it out. I'm gonna check it out.
Randy, you're in Chicago. You've got the time.
I'm in the Chicago. Yeah, I've got all kinds of time. Time is the one thing I definitely have.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, whether it's true or whether the guy's trying to get a rise out of you, it's fucking fun and
Yeah, dope
entertaining
story.
and interesting. Yeah, it's
Jackie,
no matter how you cut it.
I hope that you're not tempting fate by going where you're going. I hope that you, I hope that you, I hope that you're safe. I hope you're keeping safe.
Okay.
I don't want you to be fucked up like I am
I feel you.
in a cemetery where things are not so consequential as they are.
Oh fuck!
I don't know. I'm very.
I want to give a kind of a secondary shout out to Jackie B, and I'm assuming this is the same Jackie B that's in our Slack, unless we have two Jackie B friends. But
which we love both of them.
Yes, but Jackie, she shared a picture of her Halloween costume this year in our Slack channel, and it was insanely cool. She was the May Queen from Midsummer with like the full flower headgear dress.
That was
thing.
so great.
It looked impressive as hell. So well done. Well done. Who we got next? We got another voicemail coming up. Looks like we're going to hear from Alex.
Alex, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, Straight Chillin'. This is Julia, and I actually have a lot of.
Hey, what's up, Hardy Boys? My name is Alex Lawson, and I've got a story for you. So when I was just a kid, I lived in this house with my parents that we rented out, and it was pretty freaking haunted. I'm not gonna lie about that. I experienced some crazy shit in that house. Man, where do I even start? So I would go to sleep at night, and I would hear these heavy, like, boot steps in my house. And then I would hear them coming up the stairs, and then they would come into my room, and then I would feel this, like, heavy breathing on my neck. And then I felt like, almost like a hand, I want to say, that would touch my forehead. And I would have these nightmares where my dreams would be in reverse. I can't even explain or describe the dreams to you because they're so fucking outlandish. But that was pretty crazy. And then I had this folder for school, and it had my name violently written all over it. And I brought it to my mom, and I showed her, and I put it up to the light, and my name on the folder started to disappear. Each name that was written started to disappear. And this only got worse, and I got really sick when I was in the house, and when I left the house, I was fine. But when I came back to the house, I was always sick, and I was like projectile vomiting, like in The Exorcist. Minus, like the head spinning scene. And here's the craziest part. I heard this noise. So I went up to my parents' room, and then in a very low demonic voice, something said my name. So, like most horror movie tropes, I decided to check it out. So I walk in the room, and there's this little door that we had to this creepy attic that I would never go into. And as I'm standing there, I see these dark hands start to come from behind the door and start to open. And then as I'm watching this, I then see a face pop out.
What a fucking cliffhanger.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and then it stops.
Damn.
Well, that guy's dead.
Yeah. The demon silenced
From telling
him.
this story, that man is now dead.
Damn.
Last words he ever spoke.
Apologies, we had some of the files mixed up, but yeah, Alex, my man, you need to get out of wherever you are and get
shit.
home. You need to go like watch fucking Sound of Music or some shit because
That
you
was
are in the
intense.
danger zone.
I was like,
So- All of that is horrifying. Any
Yes.
one single instance is horrifying.
I
yeah,
would
when he
think
was
it's
like,
so-
and the most
yeah,
disturbing
but I'm
of all,
telling you.
I was like, God damn, the projectile vomiting and the fucking
Yeah,
touching
your
your
projectile
forehead
vomiting. You don't have to tell
Damn.
me anything that tops that. You could just stop there.
Jesus Christ.
I was wondering, he was talking about his name being like violently written on his folder. Like, did he violently write his name?
Yeah.
Or did the demon?
And then, like, I'm curious, like, how it disappeared, like, in front of your
Yeah.
face, or you came back the next day and it wasn't written on there, like,
Dude, I mean, the fact that we don't know is the horror movie that we could
Yeah.
make tomorrow
It is.
morning.
And he's definitely dead, so we'll never know.
Yeah.
That's how that goes.
Alex is dead. We all know this.
Rest in peace, my guy.
Yeah, you know what? Like
Crazy.
there's some scary ass shit that happens to people that I will never experience because I don't know. I'm partially because of the skeptical bullshit that I subscribe to, and also because
Red Stag, because the segment's
Red
brought to you
Stag.
by Red
Stag keeps me safe from all paranormal dangers. And if you're not drinking Red Stag, you just don't know. Red Stag. For
Oh,
Jim Beam
fuck.
elitists.
We're thanks for calling, Alex. Appreciate it. We got one more voicemail. Randy from the bottle. Red Stag Rain. We got one more voicemail we got to get to. We're gonna hear from Julia next. Randy.
All right, Julia, here we go.
Hi, Straight Chillin'. This is Julia, and I actually have a lot of paranormal ghosty experiences, but the one that happened most recently actually wasn't a ghost. It was actually a UFO, and it happened maybe 2 or so months ago, so it's really recent, and it's like fresh in my mind. So I was laying in bed one night with my window open. It was like pretty hot that day. So my window was completely open, and I'm laying in bed watching Season of the Witch, actually. And really quick, out my window, I see this huge thing that, if it was like a plane, it would have been like on my street. That's how big it was. But it just went by in like a super fast flash, maybe like half of a second. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's weird. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's probably just, I don't know, a drone or something. So then maybe 15 minutes later, I see it again. And this thing was like yellow in the center with orange around it and just flew by really fast, like high up in the sky, but big. Not like the size of a plane where you'd be like, oh, that's like a tiny little plane. It was like fucking huge. So I look out my window like, did anyone else see this shit? But no one was looking out. So I'm like, I think I just fucking saw a UFO. I'm not even kidding. I couldn't come up with anything else. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't like a drone somebody was flying. It wasn't like a hot air fucking balloon. It was definitely something fucking off. So I'm like, okay. Let me text my friend Kyle, who likes this type of shit too. So he's like, oh my god, you fucking totally just saw a UFO. So we go on the Rhode Island UFO watch website thing, and it had turned out that somebody else had actually reported the same thing at that time. It was like 12, so somebody had reported at midnight. And the weirdest part of this is that I actually started talking to people about it at work and telling them I had seen a UFO. And right when I started doing that, I actually got kind of like somewhat harassing calls from a restriction number at like 2 a.m., 9 a.m., at really weird hours. And then I had listened to a podcast about UFOs, and they had mentioned that the Men in Black will call you and leave you weird messages and voicemails and weird stuff on the phone if you had seen a UFO and told people about it. So I'm like, yep, definitely getting calls from fucking MIB, so that's cool. And that's actually what prompted me to make my
UFO tattoo flash. So I made some money off of it, if anything. But yeah, it was fucking weird and scary. And I think the fact that somebody else had reported the same thing, the yellow with the orange glow and stuff, kind of confirmed what I saw was supernatural. So yeah, anyway, that was my story. So keep it up, guys. I love listening to your podcast. And yeah, can't wait for the next episode. See ya.
I have so many questions.
Get her, boys.
So many?
No, really, I have a lot of questions.
No.
Julia, thank you for calling.
We actually
I'm
work
so,
for the government.
Inquisitive. we work for the government, and we're here to ruin any chance of UFO involvement that you have in your mind.
Here come the men in black.
Here comes the red stag.
Galaxy Defenders. Randy's just drinking from the bottle.
Randy, are
Man,
you okay?
Halloween.
That stuff tastes bad. I know.
Yeah,
Randy
just I'm not 19 anymore. I can taste it.
Red Stag Randy over here. I don't know. Have you guys ever experienced any sort of UFO sighting or ghost?
I haven't. I've heard a lot of stories, and honestly, like, I'm in the I want to believe camp a little bit.
I had one where I was younger, and I always questioned it, and I don't know if it's legitimate or not, but it's always
it's
like
legitimate
in my mind. But that's the only kind of like maybe paranormal thing I've potentially ever experienced. But yeah.
Do you want to share or not?
I don't know. It feels so weird
to
say. It feels like weird to like say it because I feel like it's not legitimate, but I always like in the back of my head think that kind of like felt like it was, but no, I won't mention it.
Okay, no problem.
I mean, no, I have not had any of these like supernatural experiences, and I'm genuinely jealous. Like, there's some people who live and die by their experiences, and I feel like I don't have that. I don't have.
Well, Randy, tonight you'll be visited by 3 entities.
Ooh, are they all Charles Dickens related? No, I like.
They're all terrible whiskeys.
Like Julia, for example, she's got a pretty compelling story, and I don't want to discount her story, but like the thing is.
What was she talking about with her tattoo?
I
don't know. I think I'm too old.
Tattoo? I don't know, but I have an Uno tattoo, so what do I have to say about tattoos? Nothing good. Do you know this?
Red
You know this. You know this.
All
right. So cool. Yeah, cool story.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
Julia. I liked that somebody else had reported it on the same night with the same like thing. Yeah. Like those type of things, like it at least because I know like if I had an experience and I like said I would feel weird to like say something because obviously like nobody else experienced it. So personally to like report it and then to see like somebody else reported the same thing, you'd be like, okay, well, like at least I have that to like kind of hang my hat on, like for your own personal sanity, you know.
You're not the only one that saw it. You know that.
Sure.
For a fact.
Then I would at least just
so
have my own like,
beneficial.
Peace of mind. Yeah.
Just having one corroborating piece of evidence is huge. I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Okay. All right.
All right. We got one more segment we got to get into before we round the show out.
More. We're excited too, Bob.
We're very excited. Have you checked your mail recently, Rob?
I have, but we'll get into it. It's time to save a life.
Where did Bob go wrong? Worrying his friends, sifting way too long through those Blu-ray bins, and it gets worse. He'll have no jet ski, wasting all his dough on those DVDs.
Juice.
Rob, you've been wasting all your dough on those DVDs. I forget I host all these different segments. And we got to know, if you got a special package tonight. So we have been tracking Bob's Blu-ray purchases over the past few months. Bob. This is the last week of October, Bob. The last numbers we're going to count. You ended at 15. And tonight before our podcast, you are telling us that you were expecting a Vinegar Syndrome package to be delivered to
a Vincent pack
tonight. Bob, tell us in the past week how
what's the Vincent pack, Rob?
Fuck. Holy shit. YouTube exclusive. Damn. Yeah. Rob, how many Blu-rays have you purchased in the past week? Are you going to shatter your record? You have never hit 20. We're eager to know.
Hit I don't know. 20, maybe.
We'll see. I was supposed to get a package today. It did not come. So I'll probably get it tomorrow. We'll see what that's all about. However, I do have some new movies that I purchased.
Bob, show us
so
the
here we go.
Purchase, Bob. Give me the stack, Bob.
YouTube exclusive.
Whoa, holy shit. That's not a bad stack. That's not a bad stack to begin with.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more, Bob? Is that 7? Or 8?
Yeah, 7.
Answer the question, Bob.
It's 7, but okay. So let's run these down because a lot of these are not horror. But I will explain them.
You even? Okay. Well, I mean,
I know. All right, Bob. So we need to know if you shattered the record or not.
Okay. So
what Blu-rays did you purchase?
I picked up 31 from Rob Zombie because I thought I was going to have to watch it.
Keep doing these things.
I thought I was going to have to watch it.
3 from Hell? You didn't expect to watch it.
Well, I did watch. I wanted to watch that. Also, I picked up Starry Eyes because it was super cheap.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Starry Eyes is a good choice.
So we're up to 17 horror.
Yeah, the rest of these are not really horror movies, but I got them. I got a Kick-Ass 2, Pirate Radio, Fargo,
Ooh, that's
Tim and
horrifying
Eric's,
and how bad it is.
Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie, and the Criterion release of The Game.
I'm sorry. There's a Criterion release of Tim and Eric's $10 billion movie, right?
There isn't, but there should be.
Criterion? What? What's wrong with you?
But so, yeah, Bob, are we going to end on 17 then?
I guess. Well, so I'm definitely going to get some stuff before our October ends, but we're not going to do another show until November.
It won't count. All right, you didn't break the record, Bob. You promised a bloodbath for October. You ended with 17.
It's a shame that you don't live up to your promises, Rob.
Well, you know,
I think you're getting better, though, Bob. I'm hopeful. Well,
maybe just
you got a big
November's
package coming tomorrow. Yeah.
It's a bloodbath. This is all a bloodbath.
Rob is expecting a Vinegar Syndrome package. So not just one movie in an envelope. He's expecting a package.
This is expecting the Lord Jesus Christ to come down and bless you as a DVD subscriber. That's what's happening.
Randy.
You can deny it all you want, non-believer, but I'm telling you.
Red Stag Randy has... Did you drink that whole bottle this cast, Randy?
I don't need to tell you that.
I think you did. I think he started with... I think he opened a bottle of Red Stag and has since finished it.
I did not open a bottle of Red Stag.
I think you did, Red Stag Randy. I think you did. Jesus
Your
Christ.
Beliefs are notwithstanding.
I can't fucking handle
Well, that's
this.
been a Halloween extravaganza.
We've been doing this for like 3.5 hours. What do I give a shit? I'm drinking. I'm drinking.
Complete meltdown. I love it. That's it. That's gonna do it for us here this week at Straight Chilling. I'm gonna have some new movies. We can talk about those next week. What do I even say at the end of these shows? We're gonna be back next week.
I don't know, stupid shit.
We're gonna be back next week with with a brand new show. We're going to be talking about The Lighthouse.
The
We're doing a show on The Lighthouse.
Don't spill your beans.
Don't spill your beans. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. It's a really easy way to support the show. It only costs you a minute or two of your time. Your ratings and your reviews help people find us that don't know we exist, and we really, really appreciate it. You can follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling. We are on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join our Slack channel, let me know through one of those social media platforms, and I'll send you a link so you can join us on Slack. I didn't actually give our number, but if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can hit us up at 904-638-3231. And I'm kind of curious, since we've been like throwing these prompts out each week, for next week, let us know what was your favorite part of Halloween season 2019. What's the coolest thing that happened? What's the coolest thing you did? Craziest shit you experienced? What kind of stood out to you spooky season 2019? Let us know. Call in, let us know. We want to hear from you. I think that's it, right, Phyllis? That's all we got?
That's
I
it.
got nothing.
Cool. Very cool. Well, in that case, until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.